Hey everybody, I'm live. A little early, as per the usual for the streams. Early is on time, so half joking about that. It's sometimes my attitude towards meetings, though. It's like I prefer to be early rather than it's like if it says 9 and you're there at 9 and 25 seconds, it's like, well, I guess you're on time still. Okay, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. But but for anyone tuning in right now, looks like I got 3 viewers. If that's not including myself, so hi to the 3 of you. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. I'll try to keep it entertaining. I'll get into the full introduction at 9 o'clock in just a minute or two. Feel free to comment in the chat. Um, Comments, criticisms, anything you want to see, any ideas you guys have for the code, they're much appreciated. Support, whatever you want to give, whatever comments. Yeah, I'm really excited to do these things, and I'm happy that it's working. I'm going to mention in a minute here that it's, yeah, I'll go through the introduction in a second here. Just as tradition, I have my Red Bull. Didn't go blue this time, went with red watermelon. I guess it's watermelon, yeah. They used to have a red one that was like strawberry or something, but now they got a watermelon one, so it's pretty good. I think it's a limited time thing. I don't know. You never know with these. The red edition. I guess it's a keeper. It doesn't say limited, so yeah. Just getting hyped up. I'm so excited for these streams now. There's something I really look forward to on Saturdays. This is my third one, so uh, and drum roll, it's 9 o'clock. The stream begins. So thank you guys for being here exactly on time. Got a couple viewers. Thanks for whoever sees this in the far future. If you're interested in React, you're interested in Next.js, you're interested in the project that I've been doing that you might know about, you're interested in making just making a side project, like something fun, and just seeing maybe you'll learn something from my commentary or the way I go through things. Uh, Let me get into introductions to start. My name's Dustin, by the way, software developer, uh, owner of this project called X that I did a while ago. That's kind of kicked up the stream to redo it. That's the main purpose of this stream. The main purpose of my channel is all things dev, tech, that kind of thing. I actually just released another video recently, a couple days, was it yesterday or Thursday? I guess it was. Um, just showing off my setup and what my gear is, what that I do for coding. Also did another video kind of just talking about my story about how I became a developer. So there's a little bit of info about me if you guys want to go back and watch those just to kind of get grounded on who I am. And I'm hoping to do a ton more videos actually in the future. These streams are a good start to kind of get me broken into talking on camera, and it's a good opportunity that every week it's like I know I have a stream and get a chance to talk to people and put myself out there, and it can be a little stressful, but once I get into the code too, it can be fun, and it's cool. It's I recommend other people do it, to be honest. It's fun to be able to do this live coding and have kind of a community and people that are interested in what you're doing, so it's much appreciated, definitely. And so yeah, on that note, thanks for tuning in for another episode. This is the remaking of my project. I wanted to mention right at the top that I've had some freezing in OBS recently. I'm trying to track it down. Might have to redo some plugins, might have to update some software. OBS is what I use for my streaming. So if for like a minute or something I disappear or I freeze, don't worry. I intend to have quite a long stream, and I'm not just gonna disappear on you guys. So if it does die on you, I'm gonna recover really quick. Unfortunately, it died a couple times last stream. First stream, I didn't have any problems, so I'm still trying to track it down. Hopefully, it'll go better this time, but I just want to warn you guys that if I disappear, I'm not going to leave you guys hanging. So, and then yeah, I wanted to get into the motivations of the stream. I kind of just mentioned a few of them, but one of the big things, yeah, is being able to put stuff on YouTube in a consistent pace. So I want to be able to build my channel and have people interested in what I'm making because I want to try to do things for people to be able to learn. That's kind of even a big part of these streams, even though I'm remaking my project and it's almost like an excuse. Oh, I'm going to remake my project. But at the same time, I want like a free form way where I can kind of just talk about code and stuff, because I also do want to make videos, but those can sometimes be, I want to be specific with the videos. Like we're going to talk about JavaScript. We're going to talk about React. Whereas with these, I want to just kind of go all over the place and just show you kind of my thinking process, my process for building side projects and thinking about code and just whatever else we get into talking about. I mean, that's something I want to try to practice a little bit on these streams too is being a bit more relaxed, and maybe we can talk about random stuff. And my last stream, I think I was a little more into the code and not as relaxed, and maybe I'll try to relax a bit more this time. I think once we have a bit more of the project too, we can have more fun with like spitballing ideas and getting things loading and stuff. And there might be a bit of tedium along the way, but I guess that'll give you a glimpse into the software developer life, where sometimes you're kind of just banging your head against the keyboard kind of thing, and maybe you'll see a bit of that as well. Another motivation was a chance to learn new tech and best practices, new tech like styled components and stuff, which we ended up installing in the last episode. I'll discuss when I get to the recap. And best practices, I mean, in general, I like best practices. I like to know the optimal way to do something, and it's kind of what I strive for in the code anyways, I guess. I mean, that's a good question, I guess. Is a best practice the optimal approach, or I guess there's a lot going on in what a best practice would be, so I wouldn't necessarily say I'm searching for those. I'm searching for optimal approaches, perhaps. What's another one? Chance to build a better version of my project. That's a big one too. I want to be able to there's a lot of things I can improve, to be honest, that I did with it, and now Windows is actually coming out with a new version pretty soon, Windows 10X, I think they're calling it. I'm gonna be maybe I'll do a stream where we kind of look at that. I'm hoping to be able to get it going on a virtual machine and see, because I think there's some changes there. They might have messed with the UI a bit, and maybe it'd be cool if I was one of the first people to have like a Windows 10X UI version as a website, because there are people that have Windows 10-ish things, kind of like mine. Not quite mine, where it was a hybrid, but I also kind of maybe want to get away from the hybrid approach to start, and I want to do a full theme that's consistent and people recognize, because I want to get more into the whole having people feel like it really is an operating system and that they're confused. Is this Windows 10? Isn't it? And once we have with styled components and the ability to do more theming and have more control over the themes, we will be able to mix and match. So it's fine if we do the Windows one now and we do the Mac one later. I think once we have both of those, it'll be very easy to interchange. It'll be interesting at certain points to think about how we'll do it. I think we'll need some styled components that will also be part of a theme. It won't just be pure settings, because sometimes it's different, like for the Mac versus a Windows window. I mean, actually, they're minor differences. They almost could just be CSS, like let's say the X's and minimize and maximize are on one side versus the other side. That I think could be CSS, but there could be some. I think the start menu would be a good example, where in Windows 10 there's that side buttons as well that slide out, and also it's just structured very differently than if we say made a Windows 98 theme where it's basically just a program list. So we'll have to have a bit more granularity, but that could even just be some booleans in the theme, perhaps, actually. So we'll get into that more. I mean, I haven't done a lot of theming, to be honest, because it's why haven't I done theming? I don't know, I don't have a good excuse for that one, so we need to get into it, I guess. I've made a theme, but I just it was just the CSS dumped in there, and there was, unfortunately, that's something, and that's another reason why I want to get into theming, is because my theme, my styling, colors, sizes, and stuff is mixed in with like functional CSS, things that I always wanted to do this, I always wanted to have this Z index, let's say, or something. It's all mishmashed in there. And I want to be able to separate that at least, and just keep separating out concerns as much as possible, including the Z indexes themselves. If you guys know about Z index, essentially the position that elements are within the page. I want to have better control of that as well, because it's a little. I had some control of it before, and I was using variables, but now that I'm using styled components, I'll have a lot more. It can be a bit more dynamic, I think, and I won't have to worry about having some variables in JavaScript and some variables in my CSS, and I never did resolve that with the previous project, how to centralize those variables that were shared between CSS and JavaScript. And that's something we can do with styled components a lot easier, obviously, because they're in JavaScript already. So, what else? Make something with a community. Yeah, I didn't really have a community when I started this project. And then once I kind of posted it to Reddit, I feel kind of like I have a community, even though I don't, I guess. But there were a lot of people that supported it. And there's a lot of stars on the project now, so I guess that's a community. There's been a few issues that have been made, but I don't have yet a real mechanism to bring it together, to have people, hey, let's make plugins, let's make themes, how can you contribute? And I think that's a problem with the previous project that I just want to fix with this remake, is make it much more modular and much more easy to contribute. So that's another hope. Get better at making videos. That's a big one. It's still pretty weird for me to make videos. I don't know how. I guess if you guys have never made videos and you're just watching them like I had until recently, then maybe you don't know that it can be a little stressful. Maybe less so when I make videos where I'm like editing them and stuff, and more. It's actually more difficult with the streams, even though it's like some would say less consequences, and it's like, hey, whatever, we can just spitball ideas. But you're also kind of broadcasting yourself live, and it's not like I can pause it or stop or do retakes or that kind of thing. So it can be a bit trickier and stressful that way. So I appreciate you guys going through the bumpy road with me on that. And the last one I had on my list was to try to have fun. So definitely, if it wasn't for thinking and being in my head and being stressed about making sure I say all the right things and give the right information, I think it is a lot of fun. And I want to just try to get more of that. And that happens once I get into the code and I start rolling with it a bit. And then it's like, oh, wow, it's midnight already, and it's been 3 hours. So it's been working out, but I just need to, it's like getting into a warm bath, right now at the moment. And maybe at some point I can just jump in. But I'm not there yet, so maybe after 50 streams or something like that. I think this could take 50 videos. It could take an infinite amount of videos, really. I mean, the project we're making, where's the end of it? Because you could just make apps all the time. You could make themes. You could learn something new. Any kind of new technology comes in, it's like, hey, how can I integrate that into my thing? It's not like your normal website or something where at some point it's like, there, the vision's complete, The vision is so modular that it can't be complete almost. So, without further ado, let us get into the episode recap. So, what did we do last episode? Let's go into the commit history here, because that is the easiest way to know. And I also got notes here. The first thing we did, where's the day? 7 days ago. Yeah. Oh, I guess it's all right here. Yeah. Oh man, we did a lot. So yeah, we updated some packages. We added some ESLint and Stylelint rules. We got the Husky and lint-staged pre-commit hooks in there so that if somebody does try to commit something and it doesn't match our rules, that they're going to have to fix it, or it'll be auto-fixed in most cases. And we'll get more into that today too, because I've actually found some solutions for problems I had last episode that we'll discuss in some of the refactoring and addendums. Every stream now we have addendums to our linting, because I'm constantly finding new rules or mistakes I made and along the way. Just reading Daniel's comment here. You're either having fun or you're smashing your head against the wall. Yeah, definitely. That goes with streaming, with coding. I guess it goes with a lot of things if you're passionate about it. As long as as long as you got energy, I guess you're in the right place. What did we do after the pre-commits? We added Jest, which I've been doing some fighting with Jest over the week, trying to figure out for the video we got coming that we're doing right now. And I was hoping to get it to the point where we wouldn't have to wrap our tests in themes, but I never managed it. So I was even thinking this could be an idea for the stream where like I give challenges to the people watching, like the challenge for next week, because you guys didn't know about it. I messed with it this week, but let's say the challenge for next week. You don't have to do this. No one has to do this, but one of my friends was like, oh, maybe I can get it working. So I'll just give the challenge to everybody, is to be able to get, let's get the, so first let's say the code after this stream, once the code is whatever state it's in, take that code and then get Jest tests to work without the need to wrap the components in the theme. And we're going to have a styled app, and we're going to wrap it in that for now. But I'd like to get rid of the styled app. Or essentially what I'd like to do is move the styled app into a custom renderer that's part of the React testing library. There is the ability to make custom renderers, but getting that to work with Next.js and Babel and it's just a mess. And every time I'd find an article, or this is something that happens a lot with coding, you'll find a Stack Overflow page, or you'll find a GitHub issue, and it'll be like, I did this, and it'll have like 50 thumbs up, and you're like, oh man, I found the solution. And then you do it and it doesn't work for you. And I think I had like 17 of those before I gave up. And I feel like it might have just been one of those like locks where everything has to be in the right position. So I may have done all the steps in the wrong order. That happens a lot too. And I welcome anyone else to try to do those steps, but we're not even going to touch on it today as far as doing the code, because I spent enough time with that already. So, but there's a challenge for somebody if they want to do it. What else did we do? Adding test action. Yeah, we got it running in the CI now with GitHub Actions. So whenever you do eventually get to commit your code after all the pre-commit hooks and all that such, then the GitHub Actions will run the jest tests on GitHub's side for free for 2,000 minutes a month or something they allow. So that'll probably get us through most of our commits. Unless we have a lot of bugs, I guess. We'll see. Explicitly added semi-rule. Yeah, I remember last stream that I watched back the stream and I was kind of like befuddled by, I was like, why is ESLint not catching these? Because I added the prettier extend. And basically the prettier extension just disabled those rules so that they don't mess with prettier, is my understanding of what that extension does. So basically I shouldn't have been befuddled at the fact that ESLint wasn't catching the way that I wanted it to catch things. So I have to be explicit with rules that I like in prettier that I want to be enforced in the IDE at least, because they'll be changed automatically with prettier. But I'd even like the IDE to mention them, because sometimes when I paste code in, I'll just clean it up really quick, you know. Or maybe I'm being weird that way, because prettier, I guess you could just run prettier, and I probably should set up, like Daniel had said, the Control-S autosave to run prettier. Maybe we'll do that in another. I haven't prepared for that one, so I'm not gonna do it this time. But I don't know why I don't like doing that. You know, it's a weird thing, I guess. I don't like when I press Control-S and my code's changing on me. I almost like to know, like, I'd like to do that all at once. You know, like, let me just mess with the code and I know where everything is. Because if I dump something in and I press Control-S and it kind of moves it around, it's like, oh, I got shifted there. You know, it's like, let me just move the code the way I want, and then when I'm done, I'll say like, hey, clean it up. You know, but there's a very good argument for just every time you do save too. And I guess I could just now press Control-S, but I don't know if I can handle that, to be honest. I need to press Control-S every 5 seconds or I explode. So that's just a programmer thing, you know. That's just a computer thing. I mean, even with OBS freezing on me and killing my stream, that's the fear I've always had. Like, I think my computers froze on me maybe 12 times in my entire life. But those times have been so, like, jarring to me because I've had stuff that was not saved that now I'm just like, I've got, what do they call it after you get back from the war? Post-traumatic stress syndrome for PTSD for, like, pressing Control-S. Like, I need to press it, you know? Because I'm always expecting everything to just blow up and get a blue screen. Hopefully I didn't jinx anything there. I'll knock on wood on that one. Added meta description. Oh, yeah, that was important. And added title in HTML document. This is just me being picky. This is when I ran it through the W3C validator and also through Lighthouse, and it complains about that little stuff that, in a sense, is almost SEO and type stuff, but in a way, it's not too. Like, that's like standard basic stuff to have those things. I'm not trying to catch SEO by adding a description and stuff, and I even was able to reference the package.json stuff. So I think it's pretty standard, pretty bog standard there. I don't know what that means, but I've heard it. Explicitly added comma dangle rule. Right. Again, yeah. So I explicitly added the semi and the commas because the prettier extension disabled ESLint warning about those because prettier would overwrite them. But I also would like to be warned about those explicitly because I like to know about them. So there you go. Added styled components, and then the CI failed because I knew it would fail. I knew it. Why did I know it would fail? I'm trying to remember. Because I hadn't wrapped it in a theme, right? And that gets to the end of what I was saying about, so in the end, I wrapped the test in a theme, and I never figured out how to do the custom renderer thing. So, and then, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I sneak the stream notes into our repo. So I do everything in front of you guys in the stream except the notes. I slip those in secretly, so sorry, but I just do. Okay, so that's our recap. Yeah, I think we should probably just get right into it then, right? Let's not tease it anymore. Let's just start getting to the code. So yeah, let's do it. Let's jump in. I got my code here. I got my notes for the stuff. We've done the recap. And let's do our traditional checking for updates, because I like to do that. That's part of my OCD. I like to know what needs updating. And I don't even like to just press update. I like to check outdated first, because I like to know what I'm getting, you know? So yeah, just some, what is this? Testing libraries got an update. A lot of ESLint stuff's got updates. Some types for Node. ESLint again, Husky. Nothing crazy. Let's do it. NPM update. Just like that. And if you guys have any trouble with the streams, the audio, the video, you want something to be bigger, smaller, that kind of thing, I'll do my best. If you want that hello world to be a little smaller or less green, no promises on that. It can be less green. I could do whatever color you guys want. Fuchsia, cyan. Okay, so it updated them. I also like to run updated again. Again, OCD. I don't trust that it updated everything, you know? Okay, it did. Good, good. I believe it now. So let's get that out of our way. That's done. And let's get into the fun. Even more setup. Why did I write even more setup? Because I have a few things I'd like to do setup on. I wouldn't actually call it setup. I mean, there's the addendums to Stylelint and ESLint. Those are every time. We're going to have those for a while, probably. Because I always get new ideas like, hey, we could lint this, we could lint that. But as far as other setup, I guess it's not really setup. I would call it, yeah, well, I don't like that title, but I'll change it later. It's just refactoring, essentially. I mean, it's moving around the stuff that we set up. And I'll tell you why now we're doing that, or why I'd like to do that. A lot of it is because, I mean, at first when you're just getting everything set up, you're like reading instructions. I got to do this. I got to do that. Okay. But then at some point you have to step back and go, I've put all this stuff together. Can it be like changed a bit, you know? Because the examples are meant to be very clear where it needs to go. But there's things you can do, you know? And a really good example that I'll show you guys that I've done some refactoring on, and we're going to do it again here now and think about it again, is on the styled components. Because if you look at like the Next.js document file and I think the app file, there's a bunch of lines of code that are completely related to styled components. And if you just come into that thing as just a brand new Next.js user, it's a little bit like daunting. It's like, whoa. I know about the document file and the app file, but why is it 30 lines, you know, or whatever it happens to be. So I found a way that I think looks nice to refactor it out, where it's very clean and at the same time it's very obvious what the little addition is doing. So and on that note about doing it during the week before it came up to the stream, I kind of just do it to prepare. I mean, and at the same time, it's a remake of the project, so I've already done a lot of this. But I always like to do it in front of you guys as well, because I mean, we're gonna rewrite it every time. Like I've already done it twice, and we'll rewrite it again. And maybe it sounds silly doing refactors over and over again, but it's almost like it's like a kind of coding practice, you know. Instead of even doing new problems, sometimes doing the same problem over and over again to a point. At some point, you got to back away from it and just say, okay, it's refactored enough. But you can kind of keep going back, and there's something to be gained from that. You know, it's not just, oh, I found out a little bit of way to refactor it more. It's also being able to look at what you've done and like analyze what was my thought pattern back then and what have I learned since then, you know? So it's valuable that way. And I think everything's still working okay. Stream's going good. Connection-wise. I don't know if content-wise, but I'm just, like I say, I got PTSD now for the connection too after that freezing the other day. So long story short, before we get so refactor. And then at the end of it, after we're done the refactoring and we've done the addendums and stuff, I'd like to start getting into the program, the process stuff. I still haven't decided if I want to call it a program, a process, a task. We'll figure that out when we start writing it. But we're going to start getting into using React context to manage the different states that I care about. Specifically, the ones I'm thinking are important at the moment would be like a session. It's gonna remember things like the positions of icons, what windows you had open, that kind of thing. What was the other one? The processes that are currently running. The files that we want to write and read. And finally, I've decided that what the windows are doing. This almost could be session, to be honest, you know? It's a tricky one. Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. It probably could be session. But what I'm saying, sorry, without speaking out loud, is the windows being able to manage, minimize, maximize the size of the windows, their z-index as to which stack order they are in, which one was last focused, the foreground, background windows, that kind of stuff. I guess I've had some of that in session and some of that in the window manager context in the past. Perhaps there is an argument to those two being put together. Maybe we'll see. We're probably not going to get into it this stream anyways, maybe next stream. But when we start writing it, maybe we'll start with having two, and then if we see overlap or we see an opportunity just to combine them, maybe we will. So that needs to be thought about more. But probably in this one, we'll get to the program context, program/process, and that might be it. We probably won't do session. We might do the window manager thing too, because when we are loading these processes, we want to wrap them in a window essentially, or have the opportunity to wrap it in a window. Some of them aren't going to have a window. Like, for example, the app called WebAmp, which is like a clone of Winamp that I use. That it has like a Winamp skin. It looks just like Winamp. I wouldn't want to wrap my window around that, obviously, because Winamp doesn't have a window in the same way. So there needs to be some logic there that we'll get into. But so let's dive into some code. So ESLint rule additions. What have I written down here? What kind of goodies do I have? And also at the same time, let's peek at my diff, if you guys don't mind. Get rid of that bookmark bar. This is a diff of the changes that I did do from last time. So I just want to see. So yeah, I basically added some rules. So let's just that is what I did. Let's go check it out. So what's the first rule here that I got? Airbnb hooks, right? Let's check this out in the browser and see. So, right, this is in regards to Airbnb. I'm gonna, oops, sorry guys. I just threw my face in your faces. If we go to our ESLint config, if you guys remember, we added Airbnb. Oh yeah, and basically another part of this addendum is just me trying to dump more extend rules in, by the way. Because I was just thinking, like, why not, you know? I think it doesn't hurt to have a lot of extended rules. There could be some overlap, but if it's like, hey, it's all good, then maybe that's okay, you know? So I feel like adding more rules, to be honest, until somebody tells me it's stupid. So I'm gonna, that's the reasoning behind this, by the way. So back to so we have the Airbnb rules, and what I had noticed kind of reading through the docs is that there's another one here for hooks. Now, I don't know what they do with hooks that we aren't going to get with the React plugin hooks, which we're also going to enable, but it doesn't hurt to enable it, I feel like. And the good thing about the extends that we're going to add here is none of them are going to be new NPM installs. These are going to be from existing stuff that we already have installed. We're just going to be adding more extensions. So there's the Airbnb hooks one. Oops, sorry, I keep jumping back to my webcam instead of my code, guys. So we'll add the Airbnb one in there alphabetically. And what's next in our list? TypeScript import. Yeah, these are new to me in a way because I don't even remember what I did. I just remember that they were good ideas. So let's check out what this next one is. This is the this is in regards to the plugin import one that we also already have, and they had a little TypeScript part that I didn't read last time, and it says you may use the following shortcut to assemble your own config using the granular settings. Basically, they have some extension suggestions here, and this one's that looks good. This line does the trick. Okay, I like things that do the trick, so I'm gonna get that because I do have those plugins, so. Feels logical to me to get that. What was that alphabetically? In the P's, P-I. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. There we go. I just don't have the alphabet in my head, you know? I could not do it out loud, but I want to shame myself to the fact that I can't remember J comes before or after I, unless I say the alphabet. Probably some kind of syndrome for that. All right, what else? What else? Oh, sorry, I didn't even speak to you guys. I was busy thinking about my syndromes here. Right, the React hooks one. This one is recommended on the React documentation, actually. They say, hey, you're going to want these ESLint rules. And I believe we had some of them, but we didn't have all of them. Or did we? Did we even have these? Yeah, we did, but we didn't have this recommended, I think. And let me just double check. ESLint plugin React hooks. I'm going to copy this extension rule, and then I'm going to double check that we have this by going into our package.json file and just double checking right here. ESLint, what was it called? ESLint plugin React hooks. Right, so we do have that. I think that was automatically installed when we did the ESLint init and we picked Airbnb. It automatically installs some of these extensions. But what it didn't do when it wrote its own rule set in that init command is it didn't add a lot of these additional extensions, you know? Like this one. Oh, that one goes probably here. Yeah. So yeah, so I feel like, again, doesn't hurt to add these. Like, these are recommended. Anytime it says recommended, why not, you know? And I'd love for someone to tell me why not, because I could very well be giving bad advice. That will happen. But I try to own up when I'm wrong, so that's got to count for something. So config prettier, right, that's another one where we have the config prettier, but I didn't notice that there's other ones you can do here, and as it mentions to you. So, sorry, here it is here. Add extra exclusions for the plugin you like to use. plugins you use like so. Oh, okay. That's worded weird. Or I read it weird. It's probably more likely. I shouldn't blame the wording. So let's get this one because we have TypeScript, and I don't think we have that one. We do have Prettier already, right? Am I right, guys? Back me up. We have Prettier, but we didn't have that, and now we do. So now we have more rules, you know? In coding, you like rules, I guess. Babel, we don't need Babel. I mean, we have Babel, but we're not doing anything with, well, yeah, we're not doing anything with Babel in theory. So I wouldn't worry about that one. Prettier. I'm sure there's some use for that, but I don't want that. Just too stupid. I don't want that. Prettier React, though. Okay, let's get that one, too. Prettier React. So we have a good chunk of them there. All these sound very relevant, so we're getting relevant ones. What other ones did we have here? I don't even know. Oh, okay. This one I think we have to... No, we don't have to add one. This is in regards to the imports plugin again. But this is a rule I wanted to turn on that I hadn't, and I think it's something I mentioned earlier. Enforces consistent usage of type imports, right? Because I was saying how I liked it when it goes import type, because then you know that imports specifically for types. So this is a way to enforce it, which is nice. Because another issue too is even when you're doing TypeScript in VS Code and the IDE suggests a type to you to import, it doesn't import it with import type, even though it knows it's suggesting a type. So unless they fix that, but the version I have, it doesn't do that. So I need to add this rule. So how do I add this rule? So it's called consistent type imports. Okay, and what do I put in the field here to get the result that I'd like? Prefer type imports. That looks straightforward enough. So let's go back to the code. It's not the best example. Sometimes these ESLint rules you kind of have to infer. I mean, or you could just remember how to do them, but I'm not going to do that. So in that case, it's like, this is the name at least. I know that's the name. So let's go to ESLint. Now it's a rule. This isn't an extension. This is a rule. And it was a C. LMN. So that goes there. And if we go back to what the content of the rule had to be, right, it was like this. Prefer type imports. Yeah, I prefer the type imports. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want them. I guess they could seem like a little tedious, or I don't know. Some people are weird. So in this case, you see how when they're using objects, usually it's in these arrays. Rather than if it's like a off or error. That's pretty straightforward. So if I want to specify a preference here, I guess if the default was prefer types, I could probably just do error. I don't know if that's the case. Let's just be very explicit anyways and just say you want an error under those conditions that they kind of have written out for us. And these have to be double quotes because we're in JSON. When you're in JSON's house, you do double quotes. So there we go. So just adding that rule, I'm pretty sure we've probably already broken it in the project. So let's try to do an NPM and run the ESLint rules that we have now and see if we actually catch something that we had overlooked before. Plenty. And okay, good. So wait a minute. Definition for rule consistent type imports was not found. Okay, so that's not called that. So let's go back to the documentation. But it's good to read errors because sometimes it's like, oh, I get an error. And I don't know why it is. And when you look at it, it's like, oh, it's extremely clear what it is, you know, in this case. So what's the rule called? Is it called type imports? What is the rule called? In this case, I'm just going to look at what I did in the... Oh, wait, no, I know. Because this is in the TypeScript ESLint rules. I'm sorry. So all we have to do is fix that. I believe it's at TypeScript-ESLint is the rule. And now that it's an @ symbol, it probably goes to the top of the list alphabetically. Let's see if that's a little better. It's longer, anyways. There we go. I guess that worked. Let's double check that. Let's go to the code and just break that rule quickly. Here we go. Let's get rid of type there. So it's already angry. Yeah, all imports in the declaration are only used as types. Okay, yeah, so that's the rule. And if we do a quick fix, it adds it for us, so that's nice. I like that a lot. It makes it very clear. I'm surprised we weren't breaking the rule, though, to be honest. I thought we were already going to be breaking the rule, but guess not. So we've added that one. What other ones do we have here? So that was it, and then there was this other one here, this Kent C. Dodds article. If you guys don't know Kent C. Dodds, he's kind of a legend in React, I believe. Looks like that. He's got a pretty good course, Epic React, I think it's called. He's got a bunch of courses and stuff, but I think he's the one that actually wrote React testing library, by the way. So this article, Common Mistakes with React Testing Library, probably relevant, probably worth reading. I read through it. I mean, we don't have many tests, so we're not really breaking most of the rules yet. But the first rule is not using testing library ESLint plugins. So, I'd say we could probably use these just to have them, right? More rules again. So we got the ESLint plugin testing library. Okay, that looks easy enough to install as usual. And go back to our code here, go to our terminal, run our special command with a space in front. That's fine. Windows can handle that. Probably Linux could too. I have no idea. And it's going to run in a blazingly slow time. I need a new computer. My computer feels slower lately, unfortunately. But c'est la vie. Okay, we got that one installed. What's the next rule there? So it has its own plugin. Okay, cool. I don't know how many plugins we want, but I guess whatever. The more the merrier. So let's add yet another plugin. Testing library, LMNOP, QRS, T, UB. Testing library. We got that in there. Switch back to this. Are there any rules we need to turn on? Then configure the rules you want to use under the rules section. Await async query. No await. Well, it's good to have those. Oh, here we go. Here's an extension. Yeah, I'd rather just use recommended. I don't like specifying these rules. I don't want to figure out what that is. Just recommend some stuff for me, you know? In this case, he has. Thank God. Thank Kent. The React God, I guess. All right, plugin, LMNOP, QRST. Click that in there, and we have more rules. The more the merrier, as I always say. Oops, sorry, webcam again. Hi, guys. But I meant to go to that. I need to... It's another thing I need. I just need to keep buying stuff, essentially, is my mentality. But I need a Stream Deck where it's got the buttons, where each key essentially does an action. Because the scenes are very close together when I'm clicking with my mouse. The next one I needed was ESLint plugin Jest DOM. So that sounds relevant because I double-checked this, actually, because I was like, am I using Jest DOM? And I'm not using it yet in a test. Well, I guess in a way I am, because I'm using it in this the extension here, Jest DOM, when I'm extending the expect command, if you guys remember from the last video, I think. So we are eventually using Jest DOM, so I think why not have this plugin? As long as it doesn't complain, you know. If we slip these in and then ESLint starts crashing on us, that would suck. But I'm always a proponent for this stuff. I mean, I don't know if... I'm not sure who the target audience is for these streams that I've done so far, because I haven't really gotten into the meat and potatoes of any of the React and Next.js stuff. I guess from a setup point of view, I have. You know, I don't know how many videos there are online of people doing as much setup as I've done and as much adding of linting rules and stuff. I mean, there's more we could do. We could add Sentry or Rollbar for when it's in production or when the clients are using it. We could add what's it called, Sonar Cube, to scan the code for like different code smells and stuff like that. That's another one. We can go further, but at that point we start to need more infrastructure, and it doesn't make sense at this point. Everything we've done so far is very much you can run on the dev side, or you can run on the CI with very little effort. So I enjoy setting this stuff up, to be honest. I could probably do a bunch more videos on setup. Actually, I guess I'm doing as many videos as I can on setup. At some point there won't be anything else to set up, or I'll just be tired of it. So I've installed Jest DOM. What do they want here? Another plugin. Good lord. How many plugins do these guys need? Jest DOM. Let's put that right there. Alphabetically. And is there an extension? Again, they want some rules. Do they have a recommended? Yes, they do. Nice. More recommended rules. So if we just slip that into the extended rules, what was it? Plugin Jest DOM. So we have so many rules, guys. It's insane how many rules we have now. Basically, we can't make a mistake. That's what it means. It does not mean that, you know. Our mistakes will be more clever, perhaps. They won't just be a missing semi or something, I guess. Or at least it'll be an error of some sort. So look at all the extension rules we've added. So many. And let's try to run ESLint to make sure it doesn't crash. This should only affect ESLint, I'm thinking, theoretically, so I don't think we have to run or test anything else, and we got the CI. So great, we added all these recommended rules, and we still pass. That's an accomplishment, I think. That's a testament to how little we've done so far, I think. So let's get this out of our face. So what's next on our list? So we've finished the ESLint rule additions. I think that calls for a commit. So, oh, and we've done the updates, and we did an update, and we didn't do a commit. Oh, God. Well, did we change anything in package.json that's relevant? Yeah, we did. We changed these two. We added these two things. So now it's such a mix. Well, I'll just make a shared commit. ESLint rule additions plus NPM updates. Fail. Okay, so anyways, let's look at what we changed, by the way. So updated. What is this? Updated. So yeah, we installed Jest DOM and testing library. Everything else we just updated based on that npm update command. The lock file, we don't have to look at that. Just some dependencies and such updating. Adding the rules and adding the plugins and adding the import rule. Nice. Let's do a commit. And you want to do these commits because then it gets your changes out of the way too, you know? I mean, even just the package.json file, you saw how it was getting messy already. It's like, which of these are updates and which of these are ESLint rules, you know? So quickly it can get out of hand. We don't need to push that. Let's just let that be and move on to the next thing, which is, oh, this is a good one. And this is something my friend Daniel pointed out. So if you remember in the last video, I think we added the Stylelint Processor. We should go into, well, I'll just show you this issue, but just to finish off the story, we added the Stylelint Processor for styled components because I think styled components suggested we add it, or it might have been on the Stylelint side. One of the pages documentation basically suggested we add it, but I think things have changed in the last little bit. And if we look at this issue right here that I found, oops. Do I need this? It's it's the newest issue. If you go to issues for Stylelint Processor styled components, it's do I need this? It's a good question, you know? Long story short, you don't really. They've added some stuff with post CSS to Stylelint, and basically there's been changes and this isn't really necessary anymore, I think, is the gist of it. So it's great that we get rid of this because this was actually stopping us from being able to do autofix on our pre-commits. If you guys remember, in our package.json file, in the lint-staged settings here under Stylelint, we had to get rid of the -- fix because Stylelint was saying it can't do autofixes when it's using a processor. But we don't need that processor anymore. So win-win, we get rid of packages and make the code better. And so now when we do lint-staged, now when we do a commit, lint-staged can fix Stylelint issues in the styled components automatically. Boom. So yeah, I auto-fixed there. What do I need to do? I need to go into Stylelint. I need to get rid of this processor. And I'm going to copy this wording because that's what I want to uninstall. So I delete that. And then I will just go in here and go npm uninstall that package. And I think that should be it. And we should test it out, right? Okay, that's uninstalled. And now let's test it out. So if we do npm run stylelint, shouldn't complain. I don't think anything's broken yet. No, nothing yet. Okay, so then if we break it, let's say by doing something like that, dun dun dun. And I think if you guys remember last video, I was so confused that it was giving this error. And I was like, how does Stylelint know if I need this processor, you know? I kept just going back to like, do I need this? So it was perfect. I could have written that issue, honestly, that GitHub issue. So we got this issue. Let's save this file. And it probably doesn't complain too much. And then now if I try to run Stylelint again, it might say that there's a problem. Good. That's nice. Very clear problem. And now let's try the fix, because this seems like something it could auto-fix. So drum roll, it did not auto-fix it. Oh no. What kind of things can it auto-fix then? Oh, wait. Another mistake here, rookie mistake. So when you do npm run and the command, you're just running the command from package.json here, in the scripts area here. So it ran that, But it's not like running that plus whatever you want to run here. You have to specify this little magic. So now you're saying, oh, I want to pass some arguments to that script command, because this is just getting ignored, I believe. Or maybe the npm run command does something with it. Are you guys still getting the stream okay? It's saying poor here for me, which is unfortunate. It says YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. Oh no. Is anybody having any buffering issues? I hope that's not the case. If anyone's watching, I'm just going to quickly take a peek at my settings here and see if there's any kind of reverse buffering I can do, which is a made-up word. Was a bit blurry for a couple of mins, just went sharp again. Okay, that's not cool. Why do I have... YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Well, give it more video, guys. Well, I'm going to keep going with it for a second. Tell me if it goes away from being sharp again, whoever's on. And if it does, maybe I'll just try to do a little reset of OBS, because it's not really going away on my stream health there. Yeah, oh, it's so frustrating. I need a better computer, guys. Well, I'm going to assume it's working okay at the moment and just continue with what I was saying. So you need to add these two flags, and then you are passing these arguments to the script command. So now if I do fix, oh, quick, get back to the code. It should fix this now. Oh, and it did. There we go. Ta-da. Okay, cool. So it fixed it. Stream's still kind of talking some smack, but it seems to be working. I'm going to try, I don't know what I could increase in the settings to give you guys more video. That's the frustrating thing. My frame per second's already pretty decent. Yeah, Well, keep me posted, guys, if it goes too blurry on you or anything. But yeah, I'm just going to keep going. So cool, we fixed it. We got rid of the processor, and we're the better for it, right? So let's get this out of our way. Get this and this and this. We had a bunch of those open that we didn't need open. Get those out of our way. Oh man, as soon as I closed those, it got better, the stream. Is my computer like that struggling to handle this? That's the frustrating thing. Yeah, my computer is just getting sloshed. Actually, that's frustrating. Well, c'est la vie. So we removed the Stylelint processor. Nice. Let's do a commit with that. And let's push before some wonky stuff happens to my computer. So let's look at the package.json file again. Because, yeah, it's still kind of going up and down, unfortunately, the stream. So we did the fix. We removed the processor. We removed the processor from Stylelint config. Stylelint processor removed. Done. So that's another improvement, and that's if anyone else is watching this stream and they've got Stylelint processor in their code, reconsider it, because there's a chance you might not need it depending on what else you've got set up. So now we get into some fun stuff. This is what I wanted to get into, which is the refactoring, because that is just a good time all around. And actually, I'm wondering, let's just get into the refactoring. Let's get right into it. So the first thing I got on my list is to refactor the styled components. And the first link I have is custom document. Why is that my first link? Because I want it to look more like the custom document. Because if someone understands this structure, this is right out of the docs. So that's how I want it to look. So if we take what we have here and we go back to the code and we go to the document and like so. So you see we got a lot of code here. Look at all that, guys. Now, if you were to look at that, you would think, oh man, he could be doing a couple things, you know? Who's to say? And if you look at this and we change it to be the TypeScript React so we can get our fancy colors, you see the difference in simplicity. I mean, it's night and day, honestly. Now, what parts can we get rid of? If we scroll down to the bottom, I think most of this is pretty critical. We can't really get much of that away. And we already have that here. We already have the export. Okay, nothing to get rid of there. But this chunk here, all of this is around the styled sheets. And if we look at what the original does, and let's take it, and let's bring it in over here on top of it, just so we can see them both side by side. I'll comment it out because I don't like the squiggly lines, but I don't need that anyways. So we see it's doing very little. It's returning these initial props, which is essentially it's getting right here in that await command. And if we highlight here, you see it highlights there. So you see it's the same command right here, I think. Yeah, if you search for it, why doesn't it consider it the same? Oh, because I copied the semicolon as well, and they don't have the semicolon. So there you go. So that's exactly the same, and then it's just returning that. Now, wouldn't it be nice if we could even just make that into a return? You know? That would be pretty. Can we do that? Yeah, why not? We need another asynchronous function, I believe. So let's bring this back, actually, and let's see if we can get it the way we want it. So this part we need, actually, because that's the types that we want to define. That part was already clean. But for the return here, what if we could do, here's an idea I had, return, and if we look here, so let's see what the code's doing, by the way. So it's taking the context, which was used here, the render page, and calling it the original render page. And this is also, there's an example of this. This is standard enough. This is down here under the customizing the render page. So there already is kind of a syntax for it, but I don't want this here because it just kind of, it's unnecessary. It just confuses things, I think, from the main document. And I think we can just clean this up by moving this out of here. So back to that. So you see it's opening context render page and it's setting it to a new function that kind of calls the original render page, but it enhances it with the styling. And this stuff came right out of the example, if you guys remember from last time. But what I like about moving it out of the document is then it becomes its own little separate thing in a file somewhere, and if someone sees that, it's not out of context, it's all right there. At least you don't have to pick it apart and be like, okay, what's this piece? It's already been picked apart for you, is my hope. So it redeclares it gets initial props just like last time, but now with the context that's been updated with the render page, and then it returns it same exactly before this part, but it adds this little styles bit. So we can do that. I think we could pretty much take this entire thing, just cut that out and make that into a function here. Let's just, for now, doesn't matter what it's called at the moment here. Just get it in. Let's get it in between some brackets. So, okay. That's still very clear. Yeah. So what are we missing from this? We need context. So let's pass context. And what is context again? Context is the document context. So we'll give it the same definition here. And it's using this thing called server style sheet. So that's the important part of styled components here that's happening. So what I was thinking is we can use this I don't know if this is a best practice or just a traditional thing of using a with. I think it's part of React, but like with this, with that. It's part of Next.js too, where you'll see when they want you to extend the Next.js config file. Are they doing it here? They're not doing it here, but at some point they'll be like with images, let's say, and it's their way of adding like a little extension. So then their images plugin will be added essentially. And I like that syntax, and I like to do it here and call this with server style sheets. So it takes a context and it returns the stuff just like last time. And it's complaining about await here because this is not an asynchronous function. So all we have to do is add it there. Yes, exactly. And now it's complaining that it doesn't know what it's returning. And we can just go back and look again at this and see that that's the return. We've already established that. So we'll add that here to this piece here. Get this out of the way. So now we've got the same types. What's it complaining about now? It's never used. Of course it's never used. So we need to use it. So let's take it. And now we can just use it right in the initial props command here. Very cleanly, I believe. Oops. Paste that in there with the context, like so. And look at that. Now that to me seems a lot cleaner. So now for the get initial props command, it's just returning the context wrapped in this with server style sheets. And now we have this plugin here, or this function that we can kind of just take out and put somewhere else. And I don't know if I'd call that a hook. I don't think so. I'm going to call it a util for now, and I'm going to put it a utility, essentially. I'm going to put it in the utils folder that I've decided to make. I had a utils folder last time, too. It's almost like a miscellaneous folder at the moment because I don't have a perfect designation for what this is. I don't think it's completely called... It wouldn't be a hook, so... Anyways, we'll give it the same name. Ugh. I don't want to type it again, though. Let me just copy this. I'm too lazy to type stuff, and I always misspell it, so I'm a copy-paste fanatic. There we go. So let's cut this out of here. I put that in there. And we need to export it as the default here. Export default. Because that's all we care to export from this module. It's missing a couple things. We're going to have to go back and take them from here. So that doesn't need to be here anymore. We can take that and bring that up here now. Like so. And it's missing the document context. it's missing a couple types. Let's just take those from here because we already got them. Slip those in there. And what else it's missing? It's missing what it thinks is document. Yes, okay. It's saying it in a confusing way because it's saying doesn't exist on what it thinks is document here, because it's saying it's not complaining about document, it's complaining about this, but the real complaint is document, and it's just assuming the wrong document right now. We need to import the next document to document. So we take that. Now we got the right document. Now it knows what's up. So now we've got rid of all those little squiggly lines, and we have quite a nice little succinct thing here. We save it, and if we're lucky, VS Code might allow us to just import this nice and clean. Yeah, quick fix, import, and there we go. And now it's there. So now you see that our document, I'm not even scrolling here. That's literally the entire document right now, zoomed in to the point where there's only 26 lines. But now it's very clear. This looks just like your typical Next.js generic document, but with this little bit of little sugar here. That's a very clear little refactor. So that's a little refactor win right there. And now when you look at with server style sheet, it's very obvious what it does. And I mean, a little bit of this, there's some Next.js-iness in here. But so is this with concept too. So it's not like this is supposed to be some generic styled component thing that you can apply to any context. The context is still very specific to Next, so that's okay. I think if it was a different framework, the code would look totally different. So it's not out of context to have it this way. And we could run prettier, and it's going to probably clean things up a tiny bit. There we go. What did it do? Yeah, kind of made things a little cleaner. So now it doesn't quite fit on. Does this one fit on the lines? Yeah, that one still does. This one is a little bit. It just added some lines. It made it a little more readable, in my opinion. Actually, it's part of the same rule of the only 80 characters. If you see here, this is exactly 80 characters, so that's nice. That actually fits on one line now. That's another cool thing with refactoring stuff out, is even just the fact that it moves it back one indentation sometimes, because you take it out of a context and you put it in its own module. And just that moving of the indent allows stuff to fit better on lines sometimes, and it makes it more readable. I mean, you have to switch tabs to switch files, but I mean, at that point, you're nitpicking, I guess. Is it easier to switch tabs or to mouse wheel up and down? I don't know. The way my brain works, I prefer the other context, to be honest. So we've done a little bit of refactoring there, but I'd like to do more Stylelint refactoring. What's the next thing? If we look, oh, I have the dreaded custom render stuff in here. Why did I even put this in here? Ooh. Well, let's leave that in there for a second, but I don't remember why. This is the stuff I was telling you guys about. I'll leave it in the show notes or the stream notes or whatever, but this is where I was saying that I never made any, I wasn't able to get the themed thing out of the context. But that reminds me what the next part was that I wanted to rewrite was the app part as well. Because if you see the app, there's, again, more style component stuff in here that it's like, this is unnecessary. And I should have made a link to the app here. Let's go to it here. So you see, that's the generic one. Very straightforward. Just returning the component. And I think we can get it down to almost that amount, you know? To it being very obvious what the actual intention is here. Instead of this stuff here, it's like, why do I have CSS inside my app loader, essentially, you know? I mean, it could make some sense, but I don't want it in here, so let's get it out. And we can actually extract this out too, but we'll do that next. So what parts are part of the styled component to get more styled component stuff out of there? Well, we can see the theme provider and the global stuff here. So let's get all that out of there. Let's start with this. This could be a component. And let's call it, if this is the app, let's call it the styled app. Was my idea. Styled app. And another convention is using capital starting letters, not camel case. Like camel case would be like that, but we use capital S because it's a component. So that's my mentality on it. And that's actually the same mentality I'd like to use for the files too. So if we're naming a file and its default export as a component, then it should probably have a capital first letter, is my mentality on that. So we make a styled app function like so, and we want to take this little piece out of here and paste it right. I guess it'll just be JSX. So let's try to do this instead. Let's just use brackets. Instead of making it a function like that, we can just wrap it in these brackets to say, just return this. And that's all we want. It's complaining because there's two components here. There's two parent components. So all we need to do is have these little fragment components. And if you don't have it's the same as doing this like fragment command or component that some people have to do depending on if you have the Babel magic to understand what this is doing. But Babel is essentially figuring out what that is supposed to be to say I'm doing a React fragment here of these two pieces. So we've extracted that out. So now what we could do is go styled app like that and just put the component in there like so. And now we can delete that. And what we need to do here is we want to pass this stuff into the styled app. So that'll be the child of the styled app is the way that these components work. So functional components by default pass this object with children. So we can just use children. And instead of the component here, we just say the children. And essentially that's it. And now we have a styled app that's always going to use, oh, this is another thing too. Default theme is coming from this import here, but we actually want that to be something that can be passed in as a prop of the component. And we'll have a default of default theme. And I'm going to redo default theme slightly in a second too. So that'll just be called theme here. So as you see, that's a very generic component now. Theme provider passes the theme with some children. That's pretty clear. So you see we've made that a lot more clear too. And now it's not complaining there. So now for now we're just doing default. But if we wanted, and in the future we'll have a way to set this. But you could set the theme right here, you know? And in the future we'll figure out a different way to do it. But for now it doesn't matter because we only have a default theme. So let's not worry about it. So we've exported that out. What's it complaining about? So first, it's complaining about types. Let's start by establishing that it's a functional component. We have to import the functional component type. And now you see if it imports it. Oh, okay, it actually already added it to the right import. I was thinking it might have not done the import type, but we'll wait for another example of that. So it's still complaining. Why is it complaining? Children is missing in prop validation. Oh, okay. So this is another ESLint rule thing. We don't want this. Prop types. This is just like another thing kind of like TypeScript that React has, the ability to kind of do a bit of static typing and say that this component has these properties, these props. But because it's so difficult to copy tooltips in VS Code, it's got to be a trick to this. All right, so I just opened the browser to get to it, just to copy that word, man. There we go. So the thing with React prop types, yeah, they're to define types, but we have TypeScript, so we don't have to worry about that. What we're going to do in a minute, I mean, first off, we're already defining children by the fact that we're saying it's a functional component because all functional components have children. I think even if you hover over this, it's not clear from that, but it's the truth, just trust me. But if you hover over theme, it is going to say, hey, theme, property theme does not exist on, oh, there we go, children, React Node. So it's saying that's basically what a functional component expects. So in that case, we do this little magic, and then we add the prop in that we want there, which we'll do. Let's do it first, actually. Theme is let's call it any for now, just for a moment. So now it's not complaining about that anymore, and it's back to complaining about prop types. Let's disable that rule in ESLint, because as I just said, we don't need prop types. We have TypeScript. So let's go in and turn that off. What was it called? React prop types. That goes here. I know that P is after J. I don't even have to speak that one out loud. So let's say off for that. So that should stop most of that complaints. Yeah, so that stopped those. And now it's complaining about any because it doesn't like any for a theme. And sorry, it doesn't like any in general for TypeScript because we have a rule that's called no explicit any. In other words, define everything. Don't just say it's any. We need to know exactly what it is, which we'll do. So first thing, I'm going to make a type. Do we have any types yet? We don't even have any types. So this is going to be our first type too. So we're going to make some types. Another convention that I've started using that I like is basically component name props whenever I'm doing this type, the props type. So in this case, it's called styled app props. And I say type styled app props equals, and then I specify, oh, it already had the brackets. So let's just do that. So there we go. So now it's theme any. And now this looks, ooh, get out of there. This looks slightly cleaner, I think. That looks a little more nice to me. And Prettier is going to probably fix the lines here in a second. And what's it complaining about now? Why is styled app complaining? The property theme is missing. Ah, yes. Wait, but that should allow it to be optional. Do I need that? No, that doesn't make sense. Huh. Why is it not complaining? property theme is missing in type children element, but required in styled app components. Oh, okay. Duh. Sorry, guys. Very clear in my type here. I need to make sure that this is optional. Ding. There we go. Fixed. So that's part of the nice part about types in a way, because if that had been required and I was doing some coding and all of a sudden I removed it, I would have gotten that error. Whereas if there was no type, like there was at one point, or when it was an any, that wouldn't have happened. So now we have a much more clear type. So what I'd like to do for all of our types is to put them somewhere. And this was another rabbit hole I actually got into last week when I was preparing for this video, was the idea of linting the types. Because there's another tool called ESLint. That could be another rabbit hole if someone else wants to mess with it, but it kind of messed my IDE up in that to get ESLint to work properly, you essentially had to make another tsconfig file, and then it became really difficult between them. There was a lot of confusion when I would try to import from one to the other when it came to my IDE, knowing if a type existed or not. And then I had to do the skip lib check. I needed to make that true, I think, and it just became a real mess. So when I make my type files, I'm not going to call them .d.ts, and I'm actually not even sure if you're supposed to be honest. I'm not sure if dtslint and the .d.ts files are only if you want to make a definitely typed package, which is essentially type definitions for another package. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the best practice is for doing types, to be honest, so in that way. So I'm just going to do it my own way, and I'm going to wait until someone corrects me. So I'm going to make a folder called types. And my mentality right now for the structure of this folder is it's going to be essentially a copy of how the parent structure is. So, and this could be confusing sometimes, so we'll see if it makes sense. Like if we're using a type in several places, then where does it go, you know, because it's being used in several places. So until that's the case, let's not worry about it. And let's say within types, I'm going to make a folder called pages, because that's where we need this code, is in pages app. And I'm going to call it, I'm going to call it style. What am I going to call it? That's a good question. How hardcore do we want to get with that? I guess we want to just say it's the app page, right? New file called _app.tsx. I'm not sure, .ts. I'm not sure how comfortable I am with that. I guess in some ways it makes sense, but it's a little weird from an organizational structure, because how do you know that the styled app props are there? That's a good point. Well, actually, at the same point, we're going to move this out of here. It's not going to stay in the app because we're making a component. So maybe I shouldn't get ahead of myself. Let's do that. So we made a folder here for types. It's going to go there. Probably not in pages, though, right? Probably what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to take out this little piece here, and I'm going to put it in its own file. And for that, I can make a components folder, which I might have already made. No, I haven't made a components folder yet. So I don't even have any components yet, guys. Let's make one. So I've got a components folder, and again, I'm going to copy the parent structure. So we know it's going to be in pages because it's related to the app. And I'm not going to make a folder called app or nothing. I'm just going to put it in pages. So we're going to call it the styled app because we're exporting that component. So there we go. And we cut this out of here and we paste it in there. We add our default export of the styled app. And now we need our imports of those things we use, and this as well. And another goal that I want with this component is for it to be quite generic. So as you see, we're passing in a theme. We're not doing the default theme here because the component doesn't need to know what default I prefer. You know what I mean? So we get rid of that. We don't need any of that. That can all go into in here now, which I like. So now all the styled component stuff is in its own little components, essentially. We don't need this FC declaration anymore because there's no functional components here. So we'll get rid of that and we'll use it here. Like so. And essentially, we've done it. So now it's complaining about this. Oh, we actually, what was I saying about default theme? We do want the default theme to be in here because a default theme, that's pretty obvious. That's pretty reasonable, I would say. So let's get rid of it from here. Why is it complaining there? Oh, because I haven't imported it yet. So let's put it in here. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to change this because I don't like the way this looks either. I was thinking about this the other day, and I think I want the themes is going to just be one file called themes. So let's go. Where did I put that thing? I put it in a folder called themes. No, I'm going to call the file themes, and I'm going to put it in the styles folder Just like how we had a styles folder before, we're going to have a styles folder still. And I'm going to put my styled components in there. Oh, and actually on that note, maybe I should put the styled app in there now that I think about it. Probably, right? So yeah, let's move that in fact. So let's move the pages folder right into styles. Move it. Cool. And yeah, update any imports we got. Let's do it. So now in the styles folder, we got pages and we got our styled app. And now the theme, I want to have that in styles right in the root. So essentially all our styled component stuff is there now, not including our with styled util. Yeah, I think the util still makes sense for it to be there. But the stuff in styles is very styled component specific, including having CSS right here. So, although to be honest, this is more of a component, you know? I think I just want only styled components. I guess this is a styled component. This is more than a styled component though. This is teetering right on the edge of what I'd like to be in styles. I'd say the global style for sure should be in styles, but maybe this actually is just straight up a component. So let's go back to let's just keep moving this file around until it feels right, right? So that's a component, but this global part is not. Let's get the global stuff out of there into its own styled component. The folder structure is still decent, I think. Oh no, actually for the global, I think it should be right in the root because that's how it was before. It was styles global.scss. So now it's global styles.tsx, I believe. If we paste that, yeah, global style, sorry, not styles. Call it global style. And we'll export that default again, like so. So now we've even cut it down even more. And now that's very isolated, and I think that's probably nicer. I think I like the idea that the styles folder just has very much style components here, like boom, just CSS, you know. And we're gonna do another example. We'll remove the hello world out of there too. So we don't need that no more. And now we need to import global styles, which I have not yet saved. So maybe that's not working yet. So I saved it. Maybe now I can import it properly. No. Okay, I'll just type it in. So we got import that from styles-global style. And it's probably complaining about the order. I'll just do a quick fix there. Okay, cool. So we got that in there. And now remember, we've also moved, oops, sorry guys. We've also moved the theme over here, and we call it themes now. And I'd also like to change its structure a bit slightly, I think. Let's just double check what it looked like again. The themes folder we can delete now. We don't need that anymore. Right, it looked like that. Here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make another key called default. So that's where the default stuff's going to live. So default will essentially be, I can't do any comments here, but that'd be like Windows 10, let's say. And then we'll have another one that'll be like Mac OS or something like that at some point, let's say. So let's call it like that. That's a little more clean, I feel. Because then what I can do is say themes here. So now I'm just purely extracting the themes. And then a little self-documentation here. We got themes.default, you know? I feel like that is just as nice as the default theme that I had before. So let's run that through Prettier for a second here just to clean it up. NPM run Prettier. And this is where it might make sense to do those Control-S hooks or to have some button or something to make it a little easier to kick that off. So let's save that. So let's fix this quick too. So the theme, we pretty much know what the theme is. Let's be pretty hardcore with it for now because maybe the theme is very clear. Like I want to have a primary color, obviously. I want to have this, I want to have that. Let's just define it because that'll be smoother. So let's go find our theme wherever I put it here. So all it has is this. Let's copy this here just so we can see it. And let's go back to our type that we were trying to define, which was in the, where was it? Styled app here. So that's what we have to work with. So let's say that the theme is just what it is here. Let's say it's got colors inside it. And inside that, it's got a primary color. And that primary color has to be a string, right? Okay, that's simple enough. And it's not complaining with that. That fits. And let's say if we call it a number, let's see if it complains. Did it? Not particularly. I feel like it should have. Why didn't it? Oh, because of this. Let me get rid of this code before it's going to make complaints. Well, maybe it didn't make a difference. I was hoping that defining the JSON structure this tight would help. I feel like before that was working, so let's assume that it will work in the future. And let's, oh, wait a minute, because it's theme versus themes, default, and theme. Okay. I was expecting that to give us something, but let's not worry about that for now, and let's just define it and go from there. So this is the theme. So let's make another type called type theme, and just extract that out, and then say this is part of the theme. And that's a lot more clear, I think. And now we have two of our types here for those types I wanted to extract. And now we know it's in component pages that we're using the styled app, right? So let's make our types folder here, and it was components, and within components it was pages. And if you guys have a better idea for this structure, we can figure it out, I think. I could put them side by side, like put the styled component here as well. And the types, I don't know, to be honest. I'm not sure with that. We need to think on that one. So I'm going to give it the exact same name. I like that for now, because then it's very clear. So this is where we're going to store the types. And we're just going to cut them out of here, because then, again, it just cleans up the file. So now that's very focused on types, and we have to export them. There we go. So now we're exporting both of them. So now when we come in here, we can probably import this. Yeah, nice. And it's complaining because it wants to be a type, fixes automatically. So now you see how the styled app, it's very clear what a styled app is, and it's quite clean. Prettier's moved the children here instead of, I kind of liked it here because then you could see children, whereas it's a little bit lost there, but not really, I guess. I mean, when you don't have that editor open, it's very clear. So now we have a very clear styled component, quite clean. And if we look at the app, let's see how small it is now. We have to import styled app. Oh, it doesn't know where that is either. We'll just do that for it. Components-styled app. Let me spell that correctly. And reorganize it. And that's not where that is. It's in pages. There we go. So there we go. Oh, and our hello world's back, just like that. So now you can see if we look here, now we have the, so when it comes to where did I add styled components, very clear. The app loads, and the only thing that changed from how it looked before, let's say before it would have looked like that, and now it looks like that. So it's very obvious. And now, if you need to know what's in there, you just dig into it. You right-click there, and you go to definition, and you can peek it, or you can jump to the file, let's say. We jump to the file, and you can see very, very clearly, oh, okay, it takes children, it's got a theme, it's already got the default theme here, and it adds the global style and then wraps it in the theme provider. So simple. And that gets into where we get into our test as well. Because if you remember, our test was using the theme provider, and then it had to do that default theme code as well. So we had to know where, and look how it messed it up. What did it do there? Wow, I don't like that. I don't know why it did that, but gross. I mean, good thing we caught that. I don't know if I committed that earlier. I don't know why didn't anyone tell me, you know? But now, instead of having those two pieces, all we need to do is just wrap it in our styled app that we already have. So it becomes a lot easier to test. And does it import now? Now it knows how to import it. Wait, what's it trying to import React? That's weird. Whoa, what do I have in my clipboard? From, what was it again? Components, pages, styled app. And then it's complaining about the sort order as always. Okay. So you see the test has kind of cleaned up as well too. And now it's very obvious, okay, they have to wrap it in some kind of styling. Whereas before when you're loading a theme, it could have been a little less clear. Like, is the theme part of the test? No. But now when you know you're loading the styled app, and another thing you get with doing it this way is you also get the global style too. So if your test could be affected by the global style, that's another nice thing. Like maybe get by text only gets visible text. And if your global style for some reason is hiding this div, then maybe that would fail. So that's another thing where it's nice to be wrapped in styled app. And my goal, again, that assignment for you guys in the future is to figure out how to have styled app be part of the render automatically. So when you run render, so I just want it to look like this. And I want it to be assumed that it's always in the styled app, because I just prefer that anyways. And it's supposed to be really easy to do if you look at the docs, but it ain't. So we've done a lot of refactoring. Let's look at what we refactored here. So we had to disable prop types. We updated the test to be the styled app now. We made the styled app by removing, what did we remove here? We took the global style and the theme provider and put them in a separate component. We were able to extract a ton of stuff from the app. So instead of it looking like this big long thing, now it essentially looks basically like what it looked like before, or like the default, you know? Like before I did styled components, it probably looked like that. I don't remember if we did which we did first, but you know what I mean? And same here, the document, very, very cut down. So it went from this huge chunk to just this little guy here. And now we've extracted all that out to this component, but now it's very obvious. Oh, okay, all of that stuff was involved in styled components pretty much. I guess we could we have extracted it more? I don't think so because of how we have to mess with context. I don't know if we could have extracted that much more, so let's not worry about that. Maybe we could have. That's another thing too, guys. If you ever think of refactors or just see something where I'm doing wrong, you can mention it in the chat, but if you don't want to, perhaps you could make a PR or message me in private at another time. And if your PR is cool, if the code's good, or if you make a good issue, we can discuss it on the stream next Saturday or whatever. So it's an opportunity to get involved if you guys are interested. So yeah, we extracted the global style as well, separating that and moving it into the styles folder so it's consistent with how global was before, which I prefer because this used to be what the content of global was anyways. And we also made our theme a little more generic. Instead of there being different files, now it's all contained in here, which could get out of hand at some point. So I don't know if that's a long-term solution. Maybe at some point we turn this into a JavaScript file and then we have these be JSON files. Like there's a default that gets imported plus, I don't know. We can make it more dynamic if this gets out of control anyways. I don't know how much parameters we'll need. Probably quite a few to make a theme. And we've made our first types in the types folder. We made our styled app props, which takes a theme, and then we defined what a theme is, which is essentially something that has a colors key and has a primary key, which is a string. And on a good day, that works properly, but I don't think it worked the way I expected it to. Let's try it one more time to try to break it. Let's just double check this here. Here, it definitely says theme or undefined. Okay. And it accepted this, so does it know that structure is a theme? That's what I'm wondering. I'd like to change the JSON file slightly and just see if it messes it up. What if I call it like that? And then I go in here. It doesn't seem to care. It broke the app, but it didn't catch it here. So that's a little frustrating. I don't know if that's a limitation of JSON imports with TypeScript, or there's another side project. So many little side projects. That's the kind of stuff that I think about during the next week, coming up to the next stream, and I always think, can I tweak this? Can I tweak that? Can I just make the app a little more tight, you know? So we've seen the changes. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in styled components that we need to do. I don't think so, to be honest. Let's take a quick peek at my diff for this and see if I did do any other relevant changes, because it was the next thing I did. Here we go, I refactored styled components. And I think I did pretty much the same thing because I've liked it so far, what I did. Yeah. Oh, here I didn't even do the types yet at that point, but I think I should have. So this time at least I was smart enough to. Otherwise, yeah, it looks like I did pretty much all the same changes, but it's good to think about it. So you see, without even looking at the code, I was able to remember most of the changes. Oh, and I extracted some stuff here. I think that's a refactor though, to be honest. Let's do that in our next commit. Let's just commit what we got here, because pretty much most of what our commit is here is focused on the styled component wrappings, kind of the required wrappings, without refactoring generic components. So let's say updated styled components wrapping. Let's call it wrapping. No one, including myself, is going to remember what that commit message means in the future, by the way. So I'm going to commit that. It's going to run all of its tests. Maybe it'll complain. We'll see. It might not. That's the thing when you have so much linting in the IDE, is you already write the clean code because there's so many things kind of making you do it. So there we go. So it was clean. It committed. I'm going to push that because I'm getting scared that my computer will crash or something. And also now that I've pushed it, it'll run the GitHub action CI, remember, and it's going to run the tests. So we'll see if our tests fail. Oh, I didn't even remember to run my tests, you know? I changed the test and I didn't run my tests. That's sloppy. I think typically in a production environment or at a job, doing a commit is not going to run all the tests because it's a bit wasteful in resources. Probably when you make a PR, it'll do it. Sometimes not all of them. Sometimes like this is something that I've ran into issues before at other companies. Is I'll do a merge of into master and then more tests run integration tests. Let's say tests that are too tasking to run later, and then they fail, and then you've got a red pipeline, and then you kind of have to fix it, and you broke it. So that's where running the test locally can help you though when you can. Sometimes it can be tough to run the test locally. So let's run it now and see if it fails. And if it fails, we'll know that the GitHub action will fail. It passed. Nice. So now we know that my styled app worked. We also know it worked because of Hello World still working too, right? Our Hello World right here. But it's good to have that secondary reassurance and to know that our test still passes. So let's close that. Let's close all. I have too many windows open all the time. So we've done a bunch of stuff. Let's close these things and let's see where the next refactors we could do. Because I wanted to do some more refactoring around styled components. So let's see, is our test... there's not much more to refactor in our test, to be honest. One thing I could refactor that I'm tired of. So let's, this next commit will focus on refactoring the index then, because we only have one page, it's the index. So we're going to refactor all of our pages now, guys. All one of them. So this part here is just redundant to me. This is a theme throughout my coding, is hating redundant variables. Some people like them. I feel like it's self-documenting in this case. And if it fits on the same line, then I like moving it. Like this is almost easier to read. Expect that get by text hello world to be in the document. It's all on one line. It's like kind of like a Yoda version of a comment almost, like expect get by text hello world be in document, you know? That's my Yoda impression, I guess. I'm sorry, by the way. But it's smaller now, you know? I like it. It's less lines. This is still below 80, so I feel like that's less mental load. Daniel laughing at my Yoda impression. Yeah, I was hoping you didn't hear it perhaps. Yeah, it was too silly. Well, it's good to make a fool of yourself sometimes, I guess. So I've made the test simpler. What else can I make simpler? The styled app, can't make that much more simple, to be honest. Pages, so we've already simplified the app quite a bit. I could simplify the app more. I'm not going to do it on this step, but this piece here is perfect for an idea I had for a metadata component that's focused on the metadata. So that's going to be my next refactor after we finish refactoring the index page. Documents we've already done. So here's the index. So what do I want to refactor? So here's a styled component. Where should this go? The styles folder. I'm imagining all the kids in class, styles folder, you know? When you ask the class, where does it go? And you wait for an answer. So where is this? Pages index. Okay, so we've already got one in components pages. So I guess in types, we need another folder called pages. This is like inception stuff right here, because this pages is referring to the same pages that page is referring to, but hopefully this makes sense. I feel like some of that structure might not make sense, but we'll have to clean that up as we go. And if you guys have a better idea, don't just be haters. You know, if you don't like the way I do it, propose a better idea. You know, or STFU. Yeah, I forgot about the STFU. People used to say that all the time. Anyways, so title.tsx. This is our component. Oh, why did I put it in types? Stupid. This is a styled component I'm trying to make here. So folder structures and name are still sound, but let's move it here to styles, because I'm trying to make a styled component, guys. I don't know if anyone noticed. So let's get out of types. So this folder structure is still valid. In pages, I want a title component. Interestingly enough, though, this title component sounds quite generic, the idea of a title. So again, this is where I'm fighting with folder structure, you know? Let's call this generic. It's a generic styled component called about titles. So let's paste it in there. Export default title, capital title here. And what do we need? We need some stuff. We need this. And that was actually all we needed. So nice. So, and you see how it looks very similar to the global style. It's like import something from styled components that you need. In this case, create global. Do your CSS magic. Export it. Same with this one. Bing, boom, bang. In this case, it's taking styled. So that's the kind of, you know, cleanliness is next to godliness, that kind of thing. To me, this is cleaner. So and it's linted, I think. Let's move this here and see if it complains. Look at that. It even keeps things alphabetical. Yeah, it is talking about alphabetizing there. I like it. So nice. And you guys know with styled components where you pass the theme. So this is where we have colors primary, like we know. And it doesn't know that it says theme any. It'd be cool if I could pass the type information of the theme that I made. That would actually be really good. We need to figure out how to do that at some point, guys. Is for this theme here, you see how in TypeScript it says any. I want that to be the theme that I've defined. Because then when I'm doing stuff here, it'll know. Like when I do theme there and I do dot, it doesn't know what the hell colors is. I want it to. So that's something we have to figure out at a later date. That's it to be continued, guys. So we have our generic component called title. We've chopped it out of here. You see how the file's gotten pretty darn small now. Some of these don't auto figure out, you know? You know title exists. Let's play a little game and figure out why, right? So we hover over here, quick fix. It's not saying import, but I've made this. So is it as simple as pressing save? Does that help at all? No. What if we close the file and open it again? Closed it, opened it. Now quick fix. No. So I don't know what the logic is, you know? But I bet if I made a new file, it might work. But I don't want to play that game forever, so. So what was it called? It was called styles, generic, title. Cool. So I like the structure here too, because when you say styles in the import, it's like, oh, you're importing a style? But no, you're importing a styled component. So now you see how that index page has become just so crisply simple by extracting out those styled components again. So again, it's beautiful. Not to toot my own horn there. I mean, you could do it too. Anybody could. It's just refactoring, guys. Why do I have a folder called patches? I don't even know why I have that. Let's delete that. Sometimes when you, like, I've done some stuff in other branches, and they'll make folders, and when you switch branches, the folders don't always disappear. I don't know what the logic is to whether or not they do or don't disappear, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So I think we've done a pretty clean refactor there. We didn't need any new types. Yeah, nothing else really needed to get changed. So let's just save that. Let's call that. Let's double check our work again. So yeah, we made that test a little simpler. We made this way simpler by extracting out the style, and we have the style right there. So refactored index. Nice. And it's going to do its little test magic as always. It's prettier, it's ESLint, it's Stylelint, it's fixing, it's doing all sorts of stuff. And there we go. So is there any other refactors that you guys see? Let's go through the file, some of the other files quick and just see if there's any other refactors. Pretty bog standard settings. Our README, let's not mess with that. JSON. There was a refactor at one point I was thinking here, but I've decided to leave it, I guess. Maybe not. Is that I don't like this being here, you know? It dumped this in here when I did lint-staged init, and I left it. But I think most people expect the dev dependencies and dependencies to be at the bottom. That's what I always think. So I feel like this Husky and lint-staged stuff really fits better with scripts, you know? It's the same in the same vein, kind of, as scripts. So I like having it there. Because then it's like, this stuff is like commands. This stuff is like repository information. Maybe this actually should be moved as well. Maybe if we're being picky here, let's move this up here, because this is also repository information. So I like to organize it that way sometimes. So now it's like, this is all very about the repository, the name, the version, the description, where it is, its author, and its license. This is all about scripted commands, and then this is all about dependencies. So, and presumably it still works. I don't think it matters the order there. So yeah, so let's just say reorganized package.json. And again, this is all tedious stuff, but it's stuff that a lot of people don't think about, and it's something to think about because it's like, hey, why not? And almost always when you go to a package.json file, it's just all over the place. But it's nice when you have it that way. Like, I think sometimes people, when you go dive into a file like that, you want to assume that it's organized that way. Like, okay, I'm seeing this here, and you're just hoping as you go down that it keeps fitting that format. But then sometimes you just see some random thing, and it's like, oh, okay, it's a Wild West here. So who knows? So we refactored that. We go to the config file. That's pretty straightforward. This environment file, yeah, don't mess with that. Don't mess with that. Don't mess with that. These are all quite simple. Stylelint file. I think we're so clean with this right now. I'm very proud of it. The ESLint file's got a lot going on, but in a good way. And I don't think there's too much reorganization to do here. I mean, I guess you could make the argument that the rules and the extends could be close, and that these parser options, I mean, why not? Let's reorganize this in the exact same vein. So these are like parser options. I would say they fit right in there with the environment. Although, was it alphabetical before? Oh, it was alphabetical before, wasn't it? Maybe that's better. A, B, E, B, G, L, B, Q, R, S. Yeah, okay, this is alphabetical. Fair game. Maybe that's better. But the package.jsons are never alphabetical. And people are fine with that, so. To each his own for that. Okay, so we've configured everything. That's totally clean. So the next thing I wanted to refactor was the metadata. Oh, and by the way, my notes have been matching this. Refactored the types. I ended up doing some of the types as I went. The hello world, that was the same as index. And now let's do metadata, because I skipped ahead. So where was the metadata currently? Currently, it's just dumped in the app. That's another thing I'd like to get out. So in the same logic, too, where we can set theme here, I'd like the metadata to be able to be where I set the name and set the description as well, or title and description, sorry. So let's, and here's another technique I do too, guys, by the way, is just dumping a lot of code in the area in front of me. You know, like what I mean by that is like this, I can just dump this here if I wanted even, you know? It's like, that's not standard, but I'm just working with text right now. I won't do that. But let's say something like my const meow thing. I mean, this, and I could get into a whole other thing about what are those VS Code extensions shortcuts where like you do like FN forward arrow and then press tab and it makes a function for you. That stuff's cool, but I have a real mental blocker when it comes to keyboard shortcuts currently. It's maybe one of the reasons I don't use Vim is I'm just not a keyboard guy. I'm a GUI guy, and I'm a typing stuff manually guy. And it probably wastes a few seconds here and there for me, but everybody has their own techniques and their own things they do, things they don't. So there's where I draw the line, I guess. Another comment here, as long as I'm writing functions, is I've a goal that I've been striving for. I don't know if it makes any sense. Is trying to write functional components without that aren't functions, essentially, that are just pure JSX. Because I like the simplicity of JSX. Because it's another step back. Because if I have a function here, blah blah blah, doing some stuff, return JSX, right? So now you got stuff going on here, stuff going on there. You got two different types of code, essentially, the JavaScript and the JSX. What I like, when possible, it's not always possible, is to just do the brackets, not a function, and just dump my JSX in there. So purely HTML, JSX looking stuff. And then you don't have to worry about consts or declarations and stuff. It's like, just make it all happen here. So, and we'll see throughout that it's hard to do that sometimes. And sometimes I wouldn't say you sacrifice readability. I would say it makes you rethink, how do I have to write this so that it's readable? And it's cool when you can do that. Like if we can make it where it's almost all just JSX components and utility functions and stuff, the separations of concerns become so clear. So that's a goal I have. Anyways, so here's the two fields we need. We need, so currently we're using name and description, but the field we need is actually called title. We're using name. So I think we should call it title. So let's call it title and description. And let's be alphabetical whenever we can. It can be tricky. Sometimes you don't want to do alphabetical and you want to do order of the way they're used. Actually, on that argument, or on that note, I actually probably would prefer title to be after the metadata anyways. I don't know if it matters, but let's do it that way. But sometimes you don't want to do them alphabetical here. I mean, the urge is to not do them alphabetically, and the urge is to do them in the order in which they're occurring. But I would say probably you still want to do them alphabetical because that often is easier to rationalize and to think about. So, but to each his own there. So we have description. That already fits perfect there. Title, we need to call title here. So you see how generic that is now. This is just a very generic component, and we're going to call it metadata like that. I'm not going to capitalize the D because I don't think it's supposed to be. I think metadata is one word. So, and now all we have to do here is just declare metadata. And are we going to have defaults? I think we can, actually. I'm actually not going to declare the stuff here, and I'm going to declare it in the defaults because their defaults are based on package.json. So it's not unheard of to do that. So in that case, this will just be an empty one, and we're going to have some defaults here. So let's do our type scripting now. So now first, let's say it's a functional component. That's not going to get us much. We don't have children mentioned here, so it's not going to be enough. We definitely need to specify. We have things that aren't just a normal functional component. We have our own props. We need to define them. Let's do it. And rather than even defining them here, let's just skip right to the making our own type. Again, same convention, metadata props. We're going to say the type is metadata props. And we know that it's a description and a title. I'm actually not going to copy the brackets here. I'm going to do that. And the description is a string, and the title is also a string. So pretty straightforward. And why is it complaining? Oh, we haven't imported the functional component yet. Like so. Okay, cool. We have. Why is it complaining about this? It's already declared. Is it? Oh, yeah, because we got it declared here. So yeah, so it's time to move the code out of here because it's just becoming confusing now. So this is going to be another component. And it's also in pages, I would say, until we think of a better name for it, for that folder. And it's called metadata.tsx. It's a TypeScript JSX file. And we put them in there. We do the same export default. And export default is preferred. We have an ESLint rule for that, so we'll stick to that syntax. And now we need to take some stuff. So let's chop this out and see what things go gray here. So that and that. Let's take these two things. And yeah, I think it makes sense to have the defaults here because the same with styled app. We do have some defaults. So let's do the same here. We have some defaults. And they're going to be exactly that. It's tricky here because I have it called description. Maybe I could call it desk or content, like DESK. I think what I'll do, just to be clean, is go as package description. Yeah, there we go. Did I spell the word package correctly? I appear to have, and I spelled the word description correctly. Okay, so that's a little trick you can do with the imports to give them a different name, is the as piece there. So now we call it that, so now we can use it here in our default. Let's say that that's the package description, and for the title, it's going to be the name. Like so. Calling it name's kind of weird. Actually, maybe we should call both these package. Let's do it. Package name. That's a little self-documentation there. Like, this is where, again, we'll get into this a million times about how I don't like comments as much. Because I could put name there, and then I could put, like, name is from package at blah, 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 you know, anything like that. Whenever you're in those scenarios, it's like, how much can I just name the variable something that'll make sense, you know? Package name. Oop. Package name. And then it's resolved. And this has gone over the screen here. Let's just clean it up ourselves. Prettier is going to do it like that, I bet. So we've cleaned that up. We haven't imported FC yet, so it still doesn't know what a functional component is. And it's going to be type. We'll just type that ourselves. So what do we got here? We got our metadata component, I think. Yeah. It's got our props. So step 2 here, we need to get rid of these types. Or we need to get our type moved into the correct place. If we look at our previous one, we put it in pages, and we're going to do the same thing for this one. We're going to call it the metadata.ts because it doesn't have any JSX in it, so it's a TS file because it's obviously a TypeScript file because we're just doing a type. So again, we're going to do an export here of the one thing, the one type that we have, and it's exported. And watch this import work right away. Yeah, this one works, but the title one didn't. Okay. What's the logic, guys, right? So you see how clean we've made that now. Now we've got this metadata component, and it's got some defaults that come from the package file. But it also can be, you can specify them if you want. Not that we're going to. And it's just nice little metadata. And now that we have the metadata here too, it'll be better in the future because we're going to need to do more metadata stuff. At some point we need to add, I think, some fonts. There's some cool preloading we can do with fonts, and we'll make a component and just have a very simple preload fonts component, and then that'll do its own thing in a separate place because we want to keep stuff separate whenever possible to a point. So I would say this piece is complete. It's probably going to do some more prettier magic for this little thing here, but we don't care about that. That'll just do it when we save. This was just for example purposes. So now this is broken. We just need to fix this with our new component that we've made. So metadata is not defined. Haha, see? Again. So it works for types. It works right away import, but for components it didn't. I don't know if that's the deciding factor. So we call it component, pages, metadata. There we go. Fix the sort order here. And now metadata is complaining because we have not made the types optional, which we should have. So these are optional now because we are supplying defaults from the package. So there we go. So now we got metadata and we got styled app. Both of these we could pass our own thing if you wanted to change what title is. And another cool thing with TypeScript, as soon as I press space, well, does it automatically? Let me try. Okay, well, it doesn't suggest right away, but if I do T, it knows title. And there's some keyboard button to have it suggest that stuff. I've seen the YouTuber Ben Awad, I think's his name. I've seen him press the right keys, but again, I'm not the keyboard warrior for keyboard shortcuts. So now we've refactored metadata, and let's take a look at the changes. Yeah, so we moved the metadata out of there. We got our package defaults. Let's run prettier just so we can see what it'll look like after it's been prettier-fied, which is the technical word for it. Joke, it's not. Prettier-fied is not a technical word. So yeah, it did put these on the new line as we expected. But we got our generic-ish metadata component. We got our app. Again, we made it even more simple. This app just keeps getting so simple and so clear. So we have an app that passed in the metadata, wrap it in a styled component, and then there's the app. So it's so much cleaner that way, I feel. And we have our types there, right where they should be in a types folder, right? So I think we're ready. That's called a refactored the metadata. Drum rollish that, and I think we're pretty close to done refactoring this code. We have a real clean looking base here. Yeah, I think we refactored everything. I'm gonna push that, and just gonna do a quick little review here. But I think we've really extracted everything out that we can at this point. I think one other thing we could do actually is this hello world component could be its own component, because we at some point are going to start loading components as apps or processes, and we don't have a component yet. All we have is the index page, and then the component's hard-coded in here. So we need to extract this hello world example as small as it is. So let's do that. Const hello world equals, and we'll just do that. I think it's that simple. Yeah, that's it. That's that whole component. I'm trying to think if there's more to it, but I don't think that there is. I think it's that easy. So we'll put this in generic. So the pages make sense because pages is a Next.js style thing, and that's where the metadata in the styled app would be, I think. So within components, we want another folder. I think this is going to be that same thing, generic. Just like how there's a generic title, the Hello World app is going to be a generic app. Or, oh, wait a minute. I was actually trying to think of the logic for this at one point. I was thinking, so pages make sense because that's a Next.js thing, but then we need our own thing to separate, like I said, processes, apps. What is this? And for that, I was thinking, this is where I went into the Windows Task Manager, and I saw they have like background system processes, and they have something called apps. So there's so many words you could use for it. I was thinking of having a folder called apps and a folder called system. And then system would have components like the taskbar, the icons, a window. And then apps would be for things like a Hello World app or the DOS app, etc. So let's do that. Let's try that for a bit. So let's say there's an apps folder, and in our first app is going to be the Hello World app. Now we're making our OS, guys. We're making an app for our OS, but even though we don't have a way to load the apps yet. So we cut out Hello World, like so, and we export default. And there is actually a shortcut too where you can go export default, and I don't know the syntax, but you can essentially do something like that. Export this with brackets. You can export default directly, but then React complains that it no longer has a name, essentially, for the component. And I think to fix that, you can do something like there's solutions around it, but I like this approach where I declare a component and then export it as default. I'm perfectly fine with that explicivity, as no one calls it. So there's our hello world component. Pretty simple with styled components. It's like hello world, the title wrapped in the word hello world, and export it. I mean, it almost doesn't get clearer than that. And now we need to export it here as the, yeah, exactly. And does it know about this one? No, it doesn't know about any components, right? We've decided that's the way it's acting. From components, apps, the hello world app. And we do a little organizing here. And what's hello world complaining about? JSX element type hello world does not have. Is this because what happened here? Why is it? Oh, because this has to be a function, obviously, a functional component. Come on, guys. Come on, Dustin. So there. So obvious, right? And then we have to say it's a functional component. It doesn't have any children or anything, so we don't have to extend it or anything further like that. It doesn't have any props, sorry. Fix this. There we go. So now our hello world is a TypeScript hello world. TypeScript /JSX. It's a lot more clear. And it's happy there. So now you see how we have our first app. We have our hello world app. So we've managed to refactor it even a little more by taking the hello world and putting it in its own little app. So made, let's say, extracted hello world app. It's going to do some linting. I'm going to have a bit more of my Red Bull. The bottomless one today. It was actually cheaper to buy the bigger one than the smaller one at 7-Eleven. Because they had some kind of deal. So I got the bigger one to save money, but it's more caffeine, which is probably a bad idea seeing as that's 11 p.m. Yeah. Okay, so we've done quite a bit here. We're making some quick ground, quicker than I expected. So now we can get into some meat. Build dynamic program directory. What have I put here? Ah, yes. Oh, yes, this is a fun little piece. So this is part that will be part of the loader, the program loader in the future, the process loader, whatever we call it, where it loads components. Because typically what you've seen in the past, probably with dynamic components loading, one way to do it. I mean, let's define dynamic here because there's a few ways to talk about it. In fact, let's go to my link. I haven't gone to a link in a while, so let's go to a page. Go to this one. So dynamic imports, there's a lot to this. There's the ES2020 dynamic import, which Next now supports, which is a way to do importing commands on the fly, essentially, asynchronously, instead of during the build process, during the packaging. And then Next.js has its own version of that called dynamic, which we'll see a basic usage example here, where it does an import that is wrapped in this dynamic function. And with this technique, it can do some fancy code splitting that makes our page load extremely fast. And that's what we want, because we're going to do some testing after we get it loading fast, actually. Excuse me. So let's figure out how to do that. And the reason we want this is because, so that's one part of the dynamic loading aspect. And what I'm also calling dynamic loading is when you set it up in React through JSX you set up a loop or a map, where you say everything in this array I want to run on and turn into a component, let's say. So that's what I'm going to call my component loader, which is essentially going to just be some JSX that says anything in this array load. Or find the dynamic component part of the object essentially and put that in the JSX. So to me, that's like double dynamic, because it's dynamic in that the array is empty and then you put a program in there and then the JSX code updates or React updates to load that component because it now sees it as part of the array. And then the other dynamic aspect is that the component that it picks to put in there at that point is loaded through Webpack, Next.js, dynamic import, ES2020 magic. And until then, the code essentially isn't loaded in the same way because it's been split up in the Webpack bundles. So it's just better. It's more efficient. So I think I've butchered the explanation enough. Let's try to think about how to do the code. So this is where I was thinking I need a program directory, because one little caveat. Oh, sorry guys, back to me again. One little caveat with this, as you see mentioned here, is that the import needs to be explicitly written without template strings. And then the import needs to be inside dynamic. Okay, that part's fine. But the part that's frustrating to us, and the reason we need a program directory, is we can't the third level of dynamism is that I was hoping that the import string could also be dynamic, so that you say you just pass part of a file path and then it loads it on the fly. But the way Next.js works with import and Webpack requires that it be an exact string. So because it is required to be an exact string already existing in the code, I'm thinking we need a program directory, essentially, where all the programs live. And for now, I'm going to put it in the utils folder. And I don't know if I should call it a program directory, because maybe I should call it a component directory. I think the wording is going to change a bunch of times. So for now, I'm not going to think too deeply about it. But it is just going to be things that are components that need loading. So I think we should call it the component directory for now. But I'm going to wrap the component in an object that could have other attributes, such as like the has window boolean, so that I can not load the window for WebAmp, but can load the window for DOS, the like window wrapper that we'll have. So maybe it's not a component per se. It's my construct of either a program or an app or a process. I'm gonna call it a process. I called it a process last time. I like the word process. It sounds cool. It sounds OS-y, and we're making an OS here. So I'm gonna call it a process directory. I don't know how much sense that makes for now, but anyways. And I think it needs to be TSX probably. It might not need to be, but let's just see. Let's go back to that example here and take that example. Take piece of it. Take this top piece here. And at first, let's just make, it's not even a directory per se. It can just be this one thing. Well, it is a directory. So let's say const, again, we'll call it the process directory. I'm probably just going to export this as the default, because I think for now it'll just have the directory in it. So it's going to be an object, and the object is going to contain these apps, processes, whatever we're going to call them. And we'll call them based on what their file name is. So this one's going to be called Hello World. And what I'm talking about here with the structure is, so let's say it's going to be like that, and the component will be there. And then it's going to loop through these objects. Yeah, so let's say there's another app in here. Let's call another one DOS. And let's say the component would be there, is my idea, if you get one idea here. And then there'd be opportunity here to say that this one, yeah, you want to wrap this one in a window. And you want to, and let's say DOS, you wouldn't want to wrap in a window, which could be the default, so we don't even have to define it. So that's getting a little ahead of ourselves, but that's the idea here behind this directory of processes. And again, the reason we need a directory is because this needs to be clearly defined. And they've even have a very similar structure to what we already want, which is kind of funny. Let's see here if it, okay, cool, it knows that. So components / apps / hello world. So we got our function here, and let's move that right into here. Like so. So we don't even need that. Like that. And we don't need our trailing comma. And we want to export our directory. Like so. So there's our process directory, essentially. So now we have hello world.component is the hello world component loaded dynamically. So it's no longer part of the Webpack bundle in the same way as it was before, essentially. So how can we use it? For now, we're just going to use it directly until we start just having a little loader, which will also be part of index. But let's do one step at a time. So now we go into index, and right now we're loading hello world directly. So because of this import right here, it's getting loaded, it's getting bundled into our Webpack through Webpack in a different way than we need. So if we get rid of that there, now hello world is no longer loaded the same way. And now if we want to reference this, we need to get it from the program directory, which is process directory. Jeez. Whatever we're calling it right now. And for now it's in utils process directory. So we got our process directory, and for now I'm just going to try to do this. I think that's pretty gross. I mean, that works. So even just doing that is going to make it dynamic, in my opinion. And you can tell by the fact that it crashed. What's the complaint here? Primary of undefined. So now it's, oh man, this is big words here. It's complaining about the theme anyways. Primary of undefined. Why is it complaining about that? I think when we do dynamic like this, we probably need to reload the app. Whenever it acts weird like that. Whenever it's not working, it's the app's fault. So let's just try again. So let's reload it and see. Fingers crossed. Hello world, where are you? Yes! It's still there. I knew it. I knew I couldn't make a mistake. I knew it. No, I'm kidding, guys. I make tons of mistakes. So there we go. So now it's loading differently. I don't have a good way to show you an example that it is loading differently other than if we dived into the Webpack itself, the code. But you're just going to have to trust me. I could be wrong, in fact. But I think my loader at some point will be dynamic. But I think it already is. So what have we done here? Let's check. So index was hello world, and now it's getting hello world from the process directory, which is an array of dynamic components. And in there is the hello world component. So now hello world is only being imported in one place, which is here. So that's pretty clean. So I think let's make another commit. Created process directory. And now we have a dynamic process directory, which is an achievement, I would say. And it's loading. It's saving. Oh, it's linting. I was like, why is it so slow, man? Okay, so now we have our dynamic directory. Ah ha ha. I just remembered my next link here. So as you see here, just next is complaining. The reason it is, I believe, is because... Oh, okay, yeah, we need to go into our tests. I shouldn't have committed. Ugh. I committed... Well, this will be another commit fixing what I just broke, because I'm pretty sure I just broke the test. So let's remember what I did here. Right, so we're loading the index page. Yeah, let's try the test. Let's try the test, because it's just a guess right now. But I think I broke the test because Jest does not know how to use dynamic properly. But I think it's an easy fix. Yeah. So you see here it's broken and it's complaining about dynamic. Big red arrow there. So luckily, very luckily, it's extremely simple to fix because there's something called Jest Next Dynamic. Boy, what do they think of Next? These guys have thought of everything. This is not Next that did this, I think. It's some other people. But thank you, people. Here's what it says here. Unlike React Loadable, the dynamic import support offered by Next.js does not expose a way to preload the dynamically imported components in Jest. Yada, yada, yada. That's where this package comes in. So we want it. We'll do save dev because the Jest stuff is not a main dependency. It's a dev dependency. And it's loaded that. So now we have it. Now, pretty much impossible that that's enough. That's just a package. So let's see what the installation is. Oh, pretty simple. So it's Babel plugin. Now, I think there's a chance that this Babel plugin part might not be necessary. If you guys remember before, I have a feeling we don't need this piece. Let's just try to use this usage piece here and see how far that gets us. So this usage part's pretty clear. Let's copy that. I think we for sure need that. And we need that in our Jest setup because we need this stuff to import beforehand, before the test run. So if we see what they've got there, we don't need this generic some component example. We don't need their comments. We don't need that. So essentially that's that, actually. That's pretty nice right there. So yeah, we're importing from Jest Dynamic. Preload all. So this before all is already a generic Jest command. It's part of the global. And it's essentially running preload all. That's pretty simple. So let's see if that alone fixes it. NPM T. There's a chance we need that Babel thing, but let's just see. I feel like we don't. Whenever they say add to Babel, it's like, I'll try first. Okay, boom, so my test passes. So now we fix the test, and now we have tests that work with these dynamic components. Oh, I think that might have even been another piece of the secret sauce as to why I had difficulty, like I was saying with the Jest thing I was trying to do, the custom rendering. I don't know if this is related, but that's another piece of the puzzle, just so you guys know that if you're trying to get it working, use the code that's been changed here. So our app doesn't need to change. Yeah, we're focused. This test is still a little weird because it's talking about, well, actually the test isn't weird because it is focused on the rendering the index page, but we have this secret knowledge that we know the index page has hello world. So if we got hello world off of the index page for some reason, then this would fail, which actually is a good test of our document loader. right? Of our app loader, process loader, whatever we're calling it today. Okay, so we fixed the test by adding just dynamic to our setup. So let's just say fixed test by adding just next dynamic. Is that what it's called, or is it called? Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Just next dynamic. Say that 3 times fast. So we fixed our test too. Let's do a push so that we see the green in our CI, which is always nice. So now we're at the point here of building the program context. And I've got some articles here. I do not recall why or what their purpose is. So let's take a peek at them. I think this is just me talking about context. Yeah, dynamic context, a more complex example. Let's not get more complex yet. Let's just talk about context for a bit because we're finally going to use it, I think. Let me double check the code before we dive in and let's just see. Yeah, I think we've talked about everything else. We have the loader. At this point, we want to program loader. Does that require context? Maybe not. Let's do the program loader first before we get into context. Because the context, let's do it all at the same time. Right, guys? Let's just jump all over the place. So context, what is context? Context is essentially a way to keep track of state. What are they saying here? Context provides a way to pass data through the component tree without having to pass props down manually at every level. That's a pretty good definition. I'm always hesitant lately with the way they always try to emphasize it's for passing props. It's for passing props. It's not for global state. I feel like, why isn't it? You know, I'm using it for global state. I mean, what is the difference at some point? If your entire app, I guess that is the difference. If your entire app is almost component based, then this definition is interchangeable. But if your app has other things going on, you probably don't want to use context for things that aren't essentially props. I bet you could, but we're not really going to be honest. I think it's just coincidental that we haven't. Once we get into using the backend more, then I think maybe we will find a use for Redux maybe, or for React Query or something like that. And we might not use context for that, but I guess we pretty much are using this for prop purposes. So it's kind of perfect for this use case. And let's just dive into it. When to use context, whenever the hell I feel like it, honestly. And we got a demo here. I'm not a huge fan of the demo. I think I'm just going to start writing it the way that I feel is right, and then we'll discuss it as we go. So let's make a folder called context. Contexts. I like that for the folder. And let's give it a very simple name of processes. .tsx. So this is the context for the processes. That's pretty straightforward. So the first thing you want to do is make your context. So let's call it the process context. I'm trying to think when plural makes sense and when it doesn't. The file is called processes, but the context is called process context. Maybe the file doesn't need to be plural either, because the context, it's the context for the process. No, it's for processes. So I'm going to say it should be plural, actually. So should this be processes context? I don't like that, though. Context process. Because here they have, in the example, they call it theme context here. And it could be multiple themes. So let's go with that. And let's call it singular, but with the assumption that the things it does can be working on multiples, you know, or not singular, plural. So we call it process context equals create context and what we want the context to be, essentially. Its structure. And it could be a string, it could be a number, it could be whatever. And in our case, we're going to use an object. And we might eventually change this to an array. In my previous project, it was an array of objects. But I'd like to try to make it an object of objects because I want to find a use for the keys. For the key of like, so hello, let me just show you an example here. So in the process loader, the process directory, if we were to say that this is a list of the apps or the list of the processes that are running, let's say. I mean, this is a list of all the processes that exist because it's in the directory, but I think it's going to be the same structure for the process context as well, in that it's going to be this object and these keys are going to be named. And my mentality behind doing that is so that we can try to use destructuring later. So let's say later on we have a context called use processes. Let's say that's our context. And we'll just say it's the, what is it going to export it? Right, it's exporting an object. We know that. Equals use processes. So let's say it's like that. And what I would have is, let's say hello world here. Yeah, so that right there would be able to extract the hello world app, let's say, in theory, if we knew it was there. But you could also be dynamic with this then, in that it could be like a key of something, and then you get the app there, let's say. I mean, I don't have it completely fleshed out, that part, but I think that's why I'm going to prefer using an object. And the only real hindrance to not using it last time was that I wanted to loop through it, and there isn't a structure in JavaScript to do that in one command. Like, you can't just go object.forEach, or you can do .map, can't you? No, not really. Not over the array. But the simple solution to that is something called object.entries, I believe is my solution that I decided on, which essentially turns it into something you could iterate over. So I think that's going to be fine, and I don't think that's going to add a lot of overhead, that conversion from an object to something you can iterate over that has keys that I can use to reference. So let's not worry about that for now. So have I done anything here? Did I change anything? No, I just talked about the example. So we were making our process context. So like I said, for now, the structure will be empty, right? So it's going to be an empty object. And we can import create context from React, like so. And so far it's happy. And are we going to export the context? I think we probably will for now. Or let's not prematurely export anything, because we might not want to do it that way. But what we need, so let's work backwards too. Let's jump over the place a little bit. And let's just go to index and do what we want it to look like. So rather than loading hello component here and having a process directory, we're not going to do that. What we want is that the index is where all the apps load, essentially. And we might reword this at some point. I don't like even calling it home necessarily, but I guess that makes sense. In a way, it's home. So let's call this the process loader. I like process loader. Yeah, let's call it the process loader for now. And it's not going to have any children or anything like that. So now it's really simple. It's just going to have to be a process loader. And I think that was part of the context, right? Import process loader from context/processes. Like so. Okay, so this needs some sorting, I believe. Yeah, a little bit of sorting. So it's saying we don't have process loader. That's true. So let's make a process loader, right? That's what I wanted to do next. So const process loader equals whatever. And let's say export const. Oh, wait, are we going to export multiple things? I think we are. So we don't want to default export. It's going to complain for now, I think. No, it's not. Nice. So what is process loader going to be? It's going to be a functional component. Let's declare it there. It needs to be a function then. Like so. Okay, I think that makes sense. It's probably asking, yeah, okay, so it wants to do default for now. Let's just, so it doesn't complain, to get rid of that ugly text, we'll do export default process loader. So we are only exporting one thing for now, but that'll change in the future, I think. Okay, we add that. And this, look at this refactor here. This part I like. So when I did the auto import, it put it in here, but this is a type and this isn't. So the auto import, the auto fix adds it for me. I like that. I like that it splits it up for me. That's pretty. Okay, so our process loader. And what does it need to do? I wanted to copy that code. I lost it. Here we go. Copy that back. And then put that back to the way it was. So let's take our hello world example out of here, because we're going to use that for a moment here. So what is the process loader going to do? Let's make a very simple use case for for this process loader, I think. Or let's just go full throttle and do the process directory so we can import it from here because it's going to be needed. And we want to loop through it. So let's start with just doing that and just moving this out. So it's going to be dot map. No, it's an object. So this is what I was saying, where we want to loop through it. So we're going to do object.entries. And let's quickly, I think it's objects. I think I don't need this is what I'm thinking. Yeah. Let's double check what object entries is just so that you guys get clarity because I've actually kind of half forgotten what it is too. So object entries, as you can see here. So if you have an object, this is a for loop way to go through it. We don't want a for loop here. We're gonna map this. But here's the basic idea is that you wrap your object in object entries and then you get this key value pair. So that's what we want. So we've wrapped our object in object entries, and now we can map over it. And we'll just make our little function there. And what we want to do is we want to have the exact same kind of syntax of like key value. Key is going to be the ID of the process, and the value is going to be that object that we have decided on in the process directory here. So it's going to be this little piece right here. And let's define that too. So what is first? Yeah, let's define that. Types. We'll call it a process, I guess. Type, I meant to put there. And for now, all it is something that has component inside it. And I'm going to hover over here and hope it helps me out. So I hovered over here and I see component type as a return. Let's just say it's that and see how far that gets us. Import that. Fix that it's the types. Okay. So it's not complaining about that at least, but nor would it. What we need to do here now is define what process directory will be. So we can say it's going to be, oh, it's an object of these. So we need to say, we also need to declare processes, the plural, I guess. Type processes. And what processes typically are going to be an object that has these IDs, which we're going to call, are we going to call them ID? Yeah. Yeah, the process has an ID, and within that is the process. Okay. So now if we say that the process directory is full of processes, now we have a lot of assumptions. Now it knows a lot of things. Now it knows that this is going to be a component type. So we've made it smarter, essentially. And now that we've created a few types, which we're going to use in other places, we need to move those into the types folder. And where should it be in types? Ugh, I don't know. Let's put it in the utils folder for now until we think of a better structure. I'm still not totally happy with that structure, but it's something. And we're gonna put it in a folder called processes directory. I don't like that. Yeah. For organizational purposes, let's just call it that for now. Process directory.ts, and that's going to have the types that are used in process directory. But in general, it's probably going to be some kind of generic type in a generic folder. That's something we need to think more about. Probably in the next episode, I'll probably do some refactoring of my directory structure. So let's not get too hardcore on it for now. So let's see if it knows my import now. It does not, so I got to import this one myself. Import. Oh no, I haven't exported it yet. That's probably why it doesn't know. So let's export this. And I typically export all of my types in a type file. It's not necessary because we're not yet using process. We're only using it here within processes. But I just like to export them all. So now maybe this import works. Yeah, now it works. And yeah, type. So there we go. We got a bit more clarity there. Now if we go back to processes and we loop through this, now does value know what it is? It might, you know. If we look at the processes, what is it complaining about here? Unexpected block statement surrounding. I think it's just complaining about nothing. Oh, I think what is it saying here? Without reading it further, I'm going to just try to make this code more valid so it can stop complaining and get out of my way. Let's fill this in because we haven't actually filled in what's going to get returned here. We want to return the value. So remember, the value now is the process. So what we're going to do is we're going to destructure it by doing that because we know it's an object, and we're going to get the component out of it. Oh. Did it know that when I typed it? Oh, it even knew. So you see what I'm saying? Now the types are helping us. Now we know components in there. So now all I'm going to do is do component like that. And let's try to see if it can autofix whatever it's complaining about. What is it complaining about here, guys? Because I'm having trouble figuring it out. Let's just comment a few things out. And let's just start going through these errors. Let's see what the main error was. Unexpected block statement surrounding arrow body. Move the return value immediately after. So it wants me to clean up the code a bit. Right. It doesn't need to be a function currently is what it's saying. And that's totally true. So let's just not make it a function and see if that's enough. Okay, so that alone made it a lot happier. What else is remaining here? Why is it complaining about that? Expects a... Oh, is it the exact same thing? Yeah. Again, it doesn't need to be... Oh yeah. So I made this a function, but I wasn't saying return. But at the same time, it doesn't even need to be a function. I can just directly return this component. So now what's it complaining about here? Key. So yes, because I'm looping over things, you need to have a key. And luckily we have the ID, which wasn't even being used. So it's almost like I expected to need to do that. So there we go. We stopped all the red squiggly lines. Let's prettier this up to fix the spacing so I can see it a little better. There we go. It's a little prettier now. So what have we got? What do we got? So we got the process loader here. It's going through the process directory. So currently it's just loading everything in the process directory. At some point, we're going to make like a startup processes, and we're only going to put some of the things that are in the process directory there. But the code's clean enough so far. So we import the process directory. We turn it into something iterable through object.entries, and then we map these entries. We use destructuring here to get the key, and we use destructuring again on our process to get the component. And at some point later in the future, we could also get has window if we have has window in there, or if that's the way we decide to do it. And then we're just dumping these components straight into the process loader. So what did that get us? Should that have worked? Maybe. Let's see what our index file looks like again. Okay, why is it complaining? Because I didn't export process loader? Oh, because it's the default. I should just do that for now. So let's see if that fixes it. There we go. Hello world. So now essentially we have a process loader. So all that index is doing is running the process loader component. We can just completely forget about index even existing at the moment. And in the near future, we'll probably change this up to wrap and stuff. We're going to have more contexts. So we're going to have like a session context, let's say. And then the process loader might be at the bottom of this tree, or we might have to add windows at some point. But you see how it'll be. Essentially, at the end, the processes are going to load. And before last time, I had the desktop icons in here. I had the taskbar in here. I had a file manager in here. Actually, the file manager was the desktop icons, which we'll get into at some point. But now I'm deciding this time to not hard code even that stuff. So nothing is fundamental to the OS except this process loader. And then I'm going to have startup apps that are going to, and I might have system specific startup apps that are the taskbar, the icons, the whatever. And then you might have other startup apps, and maybe I'll allow users to make their own startup apps that we can save to their session so that when they come back, these apps start up again, like how Windows works, you know? So that's a hope. So let's forget about index now. Index is just the process loader. No more hello world, or it's very generic now. So now if we go back to the processes context, all we have is the process loader right now, and all it's doing right now is looping through there and getting the components. And it's doing the entire process directory right now, but at some point we could do more. We could do less, sorry. We could do just the startup items. So currently we don't have context here. If you guys notice, there's no context yet involved. So we've made the process loader. I almost feel like maybe let's get this context stuff out of here and let's just make a commit with this process loader because this is pretty pure the way it is. So let's just double check what we changed. So we made the processes, it's in contexts right now. That's fine. So we made the processes loader in its most bare bones state. We redid indexes. We got our types that we need for processes, and we've also defined it in the that processes is what process directory is. So let's say we've built the process loader. And it's going to do its checking there, moving things around, yada, etc. And then we're going to bring context back here. So we don't need the process directory for now. So let's get back into our context and actually make a context. So what do we want in our context, essentially? Let's say that our context is going to be what apps are running, right? That's what matters for now. I'm thinking what the process loader will do. Yeah, is that what the process loader will do? I'm just trying to think. Because the process loader, let's just start writing it. But here's what I wanted the process loader to be able to do. Running, what apps are running, open things, close things. Those are the only three goals that I have right now for the process loader. And we're not going to even do open and close today because I don't have buttons and stuff, and then it just gets into the whole thing. For now, we're just going to focus on having a context that loads the processes and has the ability for us to look at the processes in other functional components via context. So let's do that. So I think we're going to have to make this a function now and not just a JSX element. So let's do that. Let's convert it really quick. We can convert it very simply by doing that. And ESLint's probably going to complain at the moment, but what we're going to do is we're going to add something in here just so it stops complaining. There. So now we have a totally valid function that can't be just this, so it's not going to complain anymore. And let's say that here is where we're keeping track of our running apps. So we're going to use state. And this is a React function for keeping track of states within components. And the way it works is it returns the current state along with something to set the state. And because we're not going to do open and closing right now, we're not going to worry about setting the state. And we're going to call this running for now. Or we're going to call this processes, actually. And the default for processes is going to be based on the process directory. And like I say, in the future, this could be called like startup apps or something, or it could be a mix of system apps plus user selected startup apps. And let's just quickly peek at what use state is. That's simple enough. Using the state hook. So you see here, it basically explains it. Count, set count. You got 0. If you go set count equals a number, let's say, then count will become that. And there's some special ways to use it, and we'll get into that 100 times over as we start making things. So, and also, just as another note to slip in a little ad for myself, I do intend to make videos that are like basic React, basic HTML, basic JavaScript. I mean, there's a million of those out there, but I want to put my own flair on it, and I don't want my channel to seem like it's too advanced, because I actually feel like these streams are for beginners and for advanced at the same time. Sometimes I'm going to talk about stuff that's extremely beginner. Sometimes I'm going to go extremely advanced. And it's good for beginner people to hear people talking about advanced stuff, I think, because it gets you in the mindset. It gets you hearing the way people talk about stuff, and it can be helpful anyways. So let's import useState like that. And let's split out our import into the typed one and the non-typed one. Oh, wait, what is it complaining about there? I want to do, yeah, let's, FC is only used as types. Okay, yeah, cool. That's the fix I expected. Okay, cool. So we've got a state now of processes that's based on this. That's a good start. But now we want to pass it in. Okay, first off, we want it here. So we want it to be used for our loading. But we also want to make a context. And I think part of the reason for my confusion is that this actually probably won't be part of this processes file at some point. At some point, this will probably be part of something else, some other loading thing, maybe the window loader. Maybe that's when we care about it, because the window loader could have access to the processes via context, and then it can do this loading part. But we don't have a window loader yet, so that's where I'm probably getting confused that this is even in here, because when we're done with processes, it's going to be very cleanly just about that context. So let's do that. So we got this here, so let's make our context now. Because we need it for our provider. So another aspect here, once we've created context, what's this complaining about? Oh yeah, I haven't imported it here. There we go. Fix that. Oh yeah, oh cool. I'm doing several fixes. It does some combinations and stuff. So we have process context. So what we do to make a context is, how do we do it? I think it's this dot context. Provider. Consumer provider, right. And this is in the example as well for use context. So you could look at this in another example, but we're just going to see our example because it's pretty straightforward. So we have a provider. We need to set a value, as it's saying. And the value is going to be an object. And the object is going to contain processes right now. And this is an object itself. And at some point, we'll have another thing, which is a function called open. And we'll have one called close. And our open close functions, my plan for them is that they're going to be binded with set process. So we're only going to pass up open and close, but it's going to know to set this state because we're going to essentially bind it in here. So it's going to know about it here, and it's going to be passed into like an ID of another one there, let's say. We're not going to get that far yet. For now, we're just going to make the most basic context. So we got our context provider here, our processes. Let's get rid of open close. We don't need those. And we want to move this code into here for now. And get rid of that. There we go. It's happy again. Code still seems to load. So now we have a provider, but we're not really doing anything with it because we're not using our context, even though we have some code in here. So actually, yeah, we're going to use it pretty quick, actually, I think. Let's just make sure. I think, we've essentially written it correctly. That actually, I think, will work. It is working, so it's probably correct. Let's try to break it as a test here. So let's say if default is empty, and we save that. There you go. So no hello world anymore. We bring that back. We got our hello world back. So we know that this code is making sense the way it is. But now we want to make the processes thing more generic. And like we said, we wanted this window stuff to be loaded. We wanted this component loading stuff to happen later. For now, we're just going to move it into index because that's easier. So let's take this and let's go into index again. And remember, we have our process loader here. Let's instead call that the process. Let's keep it like that for now. Process loader. And make it like that. So we want to put our code inside the process loader and then access it. So we paste our code in there like so. And you see right away it doesn't know what processes is. So we're going to have to get processes. So here's where I need to change the way processes works. And I want the children, the stuff that's here is the children for process loader. So I need to say that I want the children to go in that place where this thing was. So just like that, we put that there. And there we go. So this part actually this file is correct the way it is. But now the index, we need to access processes. So I think what we want to do is rename process loader to be something else. I think, because we need the consumer. So let's not even export the process loader for now because it's not even a loader anymore. And let's instead call it the process. What's the purpose of this thing now? It's the provider. It's wrapping it. It's a component. So let's call it the. I'm just thinking if we even need it to be like this, yeah, this needs to be here. This needs to be somewhere. Let's just save it in there. And let's export the context as well. The idea that I had here was that this would be we need a consumer essentially where we go consumer. Like so. Let's go back to our example because I'm blanking on how to use this properly now. Advanced guides, context. This is where it's good to have these examples too. Because it's something silly. Toolbar, okay. So it renders the provider. That's the way I have it with the toolbar there in the middle. I guess that only makes sense if we're going to wrap more stuff in there. Let's just try to make this work and then see what doesn't make sense about it. So no to the process loader. I need the process context. But I definitely need process loader at some point. Yeah, but if I don't have that value there, that doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. Oh, okay. So this is considered the process session. Process consumer, I guess you could call it, hey? I I think that's what you would call it. Process consumer, let's say. But I'm confusing myself, guys. I'm sorry here. Let's just do that. Process consumer. No, that doesn't make sense to me because I think you need to do dot consumer. Let's look at my diff because I'm frustratingly confusing myself at this point. This happens too sometimes. I think this is when you're coding and you have to level set where you're just like, I've confused myself. So it's like, let's see what my commit where I built the context. Right, so I got a provider. Okay, so I was literally calling it that. Why was I thinking it was more complex than that? Yeah, I don't know. I had it just like that, actually. And then I deviated from that. I was calling it the loader, but if I call it the provider, it's pretty much the same thing. And what have I changed here? So then this was the provider. Let's try to figure out what Dustin did together. So that was how the code looked. Oh, sorry guys. I was just trying to change the code to be like that. So now it works again, right? We get our hello world back. Where have you gone, hello world? Oh no. Oh, right, because I've lost my loop here. So, there we go. I need this back. And this was called process provider again. Like so. There we go. Our hello world's back. So what was my long-term plan for this? Because we're not really using context here in any relevant way. I mean, we're loading the process provider here. We're wrapping it here. So we could access processes, but we're not. I think that's where, oh, okay. I think I know. How would that work? Oh, I guess it's the same thing. Okay, let's try this. Let's just try this. So if we export the context, I think this is what I would want to have in the window manager, is that we export the context and then we use the consumer here. We're getting near the end of the stream as far as my ideas that I had for the stream, so we're just kind of spitballing some ideas here for how we're going to do the window manager a little bit. And I also can show you guys a consumer example here. So I had this part correct, I think, although it's not the default anymore. Yeah, let's say it is the default, actually. And yeah, if we're not using the provider, how is that going to work? Oh my god. I'm confusing myself here on how this is going to work now. Let's just see if I did another little piece of code, I think, where refactored more. No, where I was trying to figure out how I would get it done. Here, redo take 2. Yeah, here we go. Redo take 1 then is the one where I was messing around with it. Yeah, I have like 40 different iterations of how I was going to do it. So it's good to kind of see. But yeah, I think the trick, okay. Well, I don't have it here. Let's think about this here then. So let's just save what we have here too. So we have a process provider, which we had here, and it was actually being pretty cool the way it was. But it's not what we want long term. I broke it again. Ah, yes, because we're not exporting the right thing. There we go. We got our process provider back. Maybe let's just see how that looks first. Ooh, white space. So I went from process loader to process provider. That's the same. I actually like process provider more. Currently, it is loading the processes, but that's, I think, what's confusing. That's, I think, what's confusing me, actually. Let's not even worry about loading the processes right now. Let's comment this code out. And let's just focus on making this thing more generic and making it a context. Because I think that's where we're gonna get some clarity. And I think I've been jumping around too much and it's gotten us confused. So we have a process provider that requires children now. So let's now make it like this so that it's open to be expanded on. So anything we put inside the process provider is going to have access to that context that we care about. And that's what we're going to be able to use here. Am I right to think that? Yeah, I am totally right to think that. But what we need is another component here. I think that's the piece that I'm missing. Let's call it the window loader for now. Or should we call it the window provider? No, let's call it the window loader. There we go. I think that's the little... This makes more sense too, because the windows are going to get or have access to the processes, and then they're going to do the loading. So here we go. So that is that going to be another context? I don't think so. No, that's going to be a component. And it's going to be a system component because it's loading the windows, right? Let's call it the window manager. I like that. Yeah, that sounds cool. Window manager. Okay, so window manager.tsx. Yes, now we're on the right track. Now everything's making sense, guys. Sometimes you gotta get confused before you can get real. I think. I need some more cringe moments. Sorry, I don't have any more cringe moments at the moment. Okay, so we have a window manager. And what we want that window manager to do is what this is doing. So now we have a use for this darn code. And I think let's wrap it in. Let's wrap it in that. Wait, this doesn't make any sense what I'm doing at the moment. So this, again, remember I wanted my goal to be to try to use JSX as much as possible. Because what we can do, we don't have to. Another way we could do it, rather, there's a JSX way to do it and there's a functional way to do it. A functional way to do it is you can do like a use context type of method, and you would pass in the process context here. And then that would allow you access to the processes like so. So that's a functional way to do it. And another way to do it through JSX is by using the process context as a consumer. And that's like this. And with that, then this becomes a function inside here, which can be a little confusing. So it's a function here. And in here is going to be what you need. So that's where process would be. So you see, that's the two methods in which we can access the processes that we're going to need. And I'm going to try to use this method, because then we can just stick to JSX, which I like. And I feel that's somewhat cleaner, but I think we're going to debate that throughout a lot of this. So how would that work? I think we could just cut this piece right here, the object piece, and just dump that right in there. Like so. And that looks pretty clean. And then, like I say, we don't need this. That was just an example of the other way to do it. So we can paste that in there, get rid of this. And I think we got a basic thing here once we import this, which it's not knowing. Oh, we aren't exporting that yet. So here's where we no longer need export default. Now we're legitimately exporting both these things. We need to export the provider to do the wrapping, and we need to export the context so we can access either use context or the consumer. And this is a tricky one, because actually you could do here, instead of exporting this, you could, if you're always going to use consumer, then you could just export something that already is using consumer. And if you always use the other one, you could export something that almost looks like a hook. And I'll show you what I mean here. So what you could do is like use processes equals use context process, whatever. Why is it complaining here? Oh, const. So that could be used here. And then when I import it here, I could have just done use processes. And another one is I could shorthand this a little bit and just export that instead of exporting the context directly. And then we're also not exporting the context directly, which can be nice, because I don't know if there's other things on context that you might not want to export, perhaps. So let's do that. So we're not exporting this context, but we are exporting this one, and we're going to call it the process consumer, which is just process context.consumer. So now we import process consumer here. Oops, sorry, not there. Let's save that. And then window manager here. We're exporting that, so we should be able to import this now. Let's import the window manager here just to be done with index. Let's get that out of the way. It's a component, and it's a system component called window manager. And it probably wants me to organize these. So there, what's it complaining about here? Process provider, yes, because it's no longer the default. So now it's only one of a few. So there we go. So again, index has been cleaned up. So right now it's very simple. There's a process provider, and within that is the window manager. And the window manager will have access to the processes via the provider context, right? And within the process context, you see we've exported the provider and the consumer. And the provider is going process context.consumer for the consumer, sorry, whereas the provider is doing process context.provider, and it's using use state here. And we're going to refactor this in a second too, probably after commit. So we don't need use context anymore, but we do need our process context, which it probably doesn't know about. So we're going to, oh, we actually don't need process context, right? It's process consumer now. I just finished that. So now if we do process consumer, does it know about that? It knows about, no, wait, it doesn't know about that. Let's just change this. So again, it's not the default. So we need to have these brackets. And it's, what was it again? It was a context. And it's the processes context. Great. So that's looking pretty clean. Why is it complaining about this? Processes does not exist on type object. Doesn't it? There's some confusion here. Let's clean up this other stuff here. This is a functional component. Okay. It's just a type. Why is it complaining about that? I think I know why, but I'm not sure. What if I do that? What is it expecting? What is it expecting X to be? An empty object. Ah, okay. I think this is where we get into some TypeScript magic here. First off, let's run prettier just to make this line a bit smaller. I think, because I feel like this formatting is going to clean up a little bit. There we go. So you see here, it's complaining about, it doesn't know what processes is supposed to be, and so it's not quite clear on component either. Both of these are type issues, so let's just fix them here. So the trick here is we need to declare our types now, because here we got it being empty. I think this is probably already wrong, because now we know that the value is actually processes. So here it's tricky. We're saying create context of an empty object, but it actually should have processes in it. So let's make our initial state for the context something simple like that. And let's see if that actually, that fixed it here, but it didn't fix component. Component does not exist on type unknown. Okay, why is that? Okay, probably because we haven't really defined what processes is, have we? So we need to make a type for this entire context. So we're going to call it the process context state type. And within it, it's the processes. And we actually, if you guys remember, we have a processes type. And it even knows about it here. So it's importing it, and it's a type. So there we go. So now we have the processes context, which is just these processes. And if we look at that, it's not going to have done anything because we haven't assigned this type to anything. So now where do we have to assign it? I think we have to at least assign it here. Like so. Now what's it complaining about? Property component is missing. Right. Oh, okay. So component can be optional because this can be empty. So I think we need to clarify that processes can be empty. So let's go to our types and say that within processes, this is optional. There might not be any keys. Why didn't that work? How do you do that? How do you say that that's optional? I could say component's optional, I guess. That might solve it. But I'd like to say that this could be empty. Processes. Yeah, that actually fixed everything almost. Oh, I didn't fix this. Component does not exist on type. Okay, because it could be undefined. Yeah. No, so I need to clarify here that processes could be optional. Could be empty. Maybe here I could do it, I guess. Or undefined. Yeah, no, that's gross. That's not the way to do it. I'm trying to think how to define a let's do some Googling here and see. So TypeScript define possibly empty object. This is a little Googling. TypeScript empty object for a typed. Yeah, let's look at our first Stack Overflow thing and see if it says that. Okay. Partial. I don't know if I like that. This is probably going to be one of those things we're going to come back to because I don't have a perfect answer for this. But let's try this. Let's say this is partial first. Oh, that doesn't. It hates that. Can I say processes is optional? No. I don't know if anyone has any suggestions in the comments. That'd be nice. So no, I'm not 100% sure how to do that one. at the moment. I've kind of half forgotten. So it's complaining here. And didn't we decide what if I have that be optional? That didn't solve anything. So property component is missing in type. So it's the issue component. Oh yeah, the issue is component. Processes is always going to exist. But processes itself could be empty. How do I define that this could be empty? Or empty? Huh. Actually means any non-nullish. Maybe this could be part of that partial, I guess. I'm confusing myself as to how this should work. Let's try that for now. That's like a very rough solution that I don't like. Yeah, I mean, the thing doesn't like it either. This is the TypeScript game, guys. I think we're gonna just put this to any for a second. Well, what's it complaining about? Property component does not exist on type component type. False. Let's see what it's complaining about there. Component type. That should be fine. What if I make this an any? Was that its complaint? Okay, that solved that. But it didn't solve this because there's an expectation that processes is not empty. So let's say that that's not necessarily correct either. So that'll fix that. But at some point we need to clarify that processes itself could be empty. But I'm not quite clear how to do that for some reason. Is it in here? Could it be this? Could I just have to say partial here? Yeah, there we go. No. Okay. Right, because it's for the initial state. Right. In general, processes would not be empty, but the initial state of the process context could have an empty one. Okay. So that part's okay. What's the next thing it's complaining about? Let's fix that for a sec. Sometimes you have to define this too in the consumer and say, okay, it's returning the state. Is it? Processes is missing in type. Okay, no, that's wrong. Yeah, no, the consumer is actually not returning that at all. That was when I was thinking of another one, actually. I'm sorry, guys. So our only complaint here is that property component does not exist on type function component undefined. So is that because it can be optional? No, that didn't really solve it. Property component does not exist. What does it think this is? X. I'm not clear what it thinks X is then. But this code works, so it's just a TypeScript issue, you know? That's going to be something we're going to have to solve another time. It's going to complain about this, though, which is rough. So that's why I'm going to switch this to be any for now until we figure it out. There we go. Let's stop the complaining for now. Let's just put a little comment here, figure that out. And let's, just to make sure that it's not broken, I want to kill my node session here and just start again. So if it works, I'm going to say, great. And we don't have our types perfectly defined yet, but say la vie on that. Okay, yeah. So our Hello World app still works. So let's see what we've done here, minus the fact that the types suck. Yeah, we got our process consumer. Wait, let's start at the start. So what did we do to index? Index was the process loader, and now instead we've made that a process provider, and we've delegated the task of loading the processes to the Windows manager. So now the Windows manager is doing that, and in the Windows manager is essentially that same code, that process loader code. That code hasn't changed at all. But now we're using the process consumer to access the context of what processes exist, which we're getting from the process directory currently as the default for the process's state. So essentially we've cleaned up the processes a bit. Our types still need a little bit of work. That's going to be the next stream because we're near the end here, guys. But in general, we've pretty much got a tight little context here where we got a provider, we got a consumer, we're using state. Oh, and I wanted to refactor the state because I had a cool idea for that. So now that it's working, let's ignore the types for now because that's just a rabbit hole. But I wanted to show you guys a cool refactor idea I had too before this is done. So let's say we've created the window manager because that's the gist of what we did here. It's going to do all its linting and stuff. Hopefully, it's probably going to complain about a couple things because of our TypeScript issue. Okay, it didn't. So nice. I'm good with that. So I just wanted to get into this one refactor idea before we kind of wrap it up, because we got a few minutes here. Or maybe I should save it for another show. I'll save it for another show, but the idea of it is that you see how now this is a function again, and I wanted them to be the JSX, is that I'm going to turn this value into its own hook. And I'm going to call it use process context state, in which I pass in the default. So then I can turn this into something very simple like that. So you see how it's so much cleaner now. So it's just a provider, and it's got a hook here for the state. And then we'll focus on how the state's going to work in another file. Again, splitting out separating responsibilities again. Because then we can focus more on that open close idea I had, in which we start binding the setter, the dispatch part of use state. So, but that's for another day. So yeah, let's see our notes and see how far we got. So we built our program context, and essentially that was the end of that. And I think, yeah, we need to wrap it up there. We have our loader. We got hello world loading. I think our tests are passing. Let's quickly check our tests just to make sure. I wouldn't want to leave you guys with a failed test. If we check our GitHub actions, what was our last commit? Yeah, our last one. Oh, we haven't done a push recently. We should push what we committed there, and then I'll check the tests as we're talking. So thank you guys for staying this long. Again, if you like what I say at every stream, if you like what you've seen, please subscribe. Please give me a like for the video. Please check out my other videos. I'm going to do a ton more. I love comments, criticism, constructive criticism ideally, but it doesn't have to be. And I want to really build this channel. I want to build this community, and I want it to be unique in that it has my flair. I mean, you guys don't know me completely, but it's going to have, I want it to be unique in that way where you really feel like you're watching a Dustin stream. Got a comment from Daniel. Thanks again, Dustin. We'll see you next time. Man, I appreciate, Daniel, that you've been in these streams. It's so cool that you're interested in staying for these 3 hours and watching these with me and evolving the app with me, and hopefully we can continue evolving it. And you don't have to feel obligated to stay for every stream if you don't want to, but I really appreciate it. It's cool to know you're here, and everybody else that's been here. I see I got 3 viewers, so thanks everyone that's hung out as long as you guys did. And yeah, just before we wrap up the stream, just for next stream, there'll probably be some addendums fixing these types that I was having an issue with. Maybe some more Stylelint, ESLint stuff. You never know with that. I'm going to think about it throughout the week, and then I'll have something ready for you guys on Saturday. And once we get this window manager component process loading stuff out of the way, and we've cleaned all this up and refactored this up, then we can start building some components. Like the first one I'd like to do is the background, the wallpaper. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And it's also one of the first things that you see with Windows as well. Like if you go into safe mode with command prompt or something in Windows, if you did that back in the day, first thing you see, wallpaper, then a command prompt. So that wallpaper is loaded. And I want that to be the first thing people see for us is the wallpaper. So, and then we'll maybe do the taskbar. And the taskbar will be a cool example for us to be able to work with the use context. Because the background wallpaper doesn't really care about the context of processes running and opening and closing. It's just going to be showing a wallpaper. It's just going to be showing a background. But the taskbar, that's going to be a challenge because that's going to be something that's listing the running processes. So then we get into making our taskbar entries and a whole other barrel of noodles or whatever you call it. Cool. Daniel says he's enjoying it. No worries. That's awesome. I'm happy people are enjoying it. And yeah, I'm gonna probably post another video later this week because I try to do an edited video and a stream once a week at least. So look forward to that. But yeah, I think it's time to wrap it up. I don't know how long I went. It never froze on me. Yes, that's great to know. But I'll probably still upgrade my computer at some point because I still want a faster computer. So anyways, let's wrap it up. Almost 3 hours. Awesome to have you guys here again. Thank you. See you in the next video. Gonna do more stuff. If you have any PRs, comments, questions, concerns, please leave them in there. Throw me a like, throw me a subscribe. Thank you guys. Good night.